So can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So welcome, guys. I'm like really excited. This is phenomenal. So this hopefully is our first hopefully of many conferences on digital media marketing. Just a couple of house cleaning sort of things first. Just want to make sure everybody knows where all the bathrooms are. Got bathrooms out this door. There are more bathrooms back this way as well. Another thing, just to let you guys know, we are not taking a break. So, I mean, we just have, sorry, so if you guys have to get up to go to the bathroom, it's just going to be at your own discretion. It's just we've got so much we're trying to pack in. I really wanted to pack it in and make the most of the afternoon. There's just a lot of good discussion and topics that we want to cover. Again, we've got lots of coffee over there to keep you guys awake. Some of the topics are going to get pretty heavy, so I'll warn you now. And it should be for a really great event. Also, we do have Wi-Fi set up in here, so if anybody's wanting to Wi-Fi in, if there's any problems, Thomas, well, not Thomas is busy.
Go to the front desk.
Go to the front desk. Okay, if anybody's having problems with Wi-Fi. So we do have that as well. So again, just want to welcome everybody again. Once again, we are really excited here at the University of Missouri to kind of be kicking off some of our new programs that we're going to be creating in the fall. So we are looking, right now we created a couple of new classes in the spring, which was digital media marketing strategies and measurement for the graduate level and digital strategies for the undergraduate level. And we're looking to create some other classes such as strategic search engine marketing, web analytics, digital marketing strategies. So we've got a lot of new things kind of coming in the fall. So make sure you guys keep your eyes out for that, both on the credit and the non-credit side. So again, if you want to go in and learn strategic search engine marketing on the non-credit side, you can do that. And most likely it's probably going to be in a 3-day format, which is more conducive to people who are working, 40 plus hours a week. So, I mean, we've got lots of cool stuff that we're going to be kind of blowing out here at the university. Just infusing the programs with digital. But again, I just want to say here also, I would love for Keith and for Tom to stand up, because without these two guys' support of doing this, none of this would be happening. So I mean, they're phenomenal. These are my two bosses, so I want to stay in good graces with them. They're phenomenal, and again, it just wouldn't be happening without them. So they're the ones that kind of saw that vision and are working with me on doing this. So a phenomenal time. Let's see here. What else do I want to touch base on? I want to make sure you guys are joining the conversation. So make sure you guys did download the Bonfire app. So I'm going to let Bonfire come up in a few minutes just to talk a little bit about what they are. They're a St. Louis startup. And again, they help conversations grow and foster conversations within kind of a conference sort of setting, and lots of other cool opportunities for them in terms of the business model. And then we also have basically created a relationship with NetBase, which is a social listening sort of piece of software, which allows us to listen to conversations out there in social space on Facebook, Twitter, blogs, any open source sort of conversations going on. And we'll be using NetBase exclusively in the social media classes. So again, which is a great thing. And Marshall's founder, when Marshall comes up, author of social media analytics, he also has a good relationship with NetBase, and we'll be talking a lot about kind of analytics in the social space, which is really kind of awesome. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, the hashtag. One of my students, Nikki, reminded me we did not have the hashtag up anywhere. So if you guys are going to be tweeting, make sure you use the hashtag UMSLDigital, UMSLDIGITAL. So make sure you guys use that so we can follow the conversation and kind of see what's going on. So again, my bad for not having that up there. Oh, is it trending? Oh, we want to get it trending. Okay, let's get it trending. Let's get it trending. Okay. I'd be excited. I thought it was trending already. Okay, so let's get that happening. And let's see, a couple other things. I know Nikki and Natalie from the marketing clubs are here. So again, for the students, make sure you guys join into the clubs. We're going to be doing lots of cool stuff, taking agency visits like to Locker Dome and also to Bonfire. So lots of cool things kind of happening. So make sure you guys take advantage of that. We've got also, where is Wes from the AMA? course, Wes is Wes. So again, guys, AMA, make sure you guys join the AMA. So Wes is back over there. And we got Aaron from the Social Media Club. And again, so make sure, if you guys aren't following that on Twitter, make sure you are. They do a lot of cool, awesome stuff. So anyway, it's just an exciting time, guys. Just really. Let's see here. What else do I have on this? I think I kind of hit all the main things. So what I'm going to do is let's have, where's the net base? Guys, Mark, you want to, Bonfire. Let's have Bonfire come up. So Mark, you want to come up and let's talk a little bit about Bonfire and Thomas, what do you want me to do? You want me to
can use the
this slide or
handheld,
this?
either one.
You want to use, yep, okay. Cool, all right, thanks. Yep.
This the clicker for it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much. I know I've got to be brief. We've got a lot to get through today. So I'm Mark Sawyer, co-founder and CEO of Bonfire, and definitely going to make this pretty short.
Can you hand hold the mic, please?
Yes. And holding the mic. Thank you. All right. So as I said, I'm co-founder and CEO of Bonfire, Mark Sawyer, and really what I'm going to tell you about today is what is Bonfire, why you should care, and what we're doing with Bonfire today. Pretty straightforward. So first let's get started with the problem Bonfire is solving. What you're looking at is a visual depiction of what happens with traditional social networks over time. Right? As I go through life, I accumulate more and more connections, Facebook friends, Twitter followers, whatever it might be. And this is a great way to have a Rolodex of everyone I've ever met and be able to share something with the whole world or to see what everyone I've ever met is up to. The problem with this is, though, that the people I actually cared about in my life changes over time, but it's typically a small number, right? I mean, I don't actually have 900 real friends. I have 900 Facebook friends. And so we're solving that problem with Bonfire. And we solve this problem with a fundamental change in the currency and framework within which people share content with one another. Instead of using connections as the underlying framework for sharing, we use events, the things you're doing and the people you're actually doing those things with as the currency and framework for connecting. And so bonfires are basically private environments where you can share chats, photos, and video coming soon in real time, and it's visible only to the people that are actually a part of that bonfire. And one of the nice outcomes of this technology is that everybody's content is in one place. So whether it's a conference like this, or it's a family trip, a class, a class activity, an epic night out, it's a very easy way to privately have everybody's photos in one place so you don't have to email or text people to corral photos or look at 20 different Facebook albums. So, we launched 6 months ago. We're a St. Louis startup, as Perry mentioned, and it's been very exciting to see the traction we've had just in that short period of time. If you think about the problem we're solving for consumers in terms of sharing around events, I mean, imagine what brands are dealing with. Brands have gone out and accumulated millions and millions and millions of Facebook likes and Twitter followers, but at the end of the day, 35 million people don't care about some concert that a brand is sponsoring in the middle of Austin, Texas. And so we create a distribution channel for brands to connect with people around the events and experiences they're actually creating. And so over the last 6 months, we've been very happy and fortunate to be working with a large, global brands like Budweiser, national media properties like Sports Illustrated, down to nonprofits, charity events, so on and so forth. So in terms of what we're using Bonfire here at the conference for, there's a whole kind of series of use cases, but I'd say primarily these kind of three things. So the first is, and I think there's about 170 people in the Bonfire right now, which is great. And for those of you that joined before today, you would have noticed, for example, a great video from Perry kind of setting up the conference, what are we going to be expecting? And this is really just one example of that real-time connection that we create so that before the event and afterwards, you're able to share this emotive, relevant content to people based on the event that they're actually attending. Number two, I mentioned this earlier, is just everybody's pictures in one place. I'm sure all of you are really awesome people, but I don't necessarily want to be Facebook friends with each and every one of you in order to see pictures that you take from today, but we enable that to happen within Bonfire. And then finally is, and I think this is my favorite part around the conference, is the ability for, there's a lot of brilliant people that are going to be up here today talking about some very incredible topics, and Bonfire is a great way throughout the event and throughout those conversations, to really be able to give feedback and actually engage in a real conversation with people. Because 140 characters is a great way to share something with the whole world, but I mean, what if my opinion about what someone's saying is longer than 140 characters? We actually create an environment for you to have a real-time, ongoing conversation with multiple people. So, just in case you haven't already, it's pretty simple to join the bonfire. You just download the app, you sign in via email or Facebook, and on the chairs there should be a little business card with a QR code on it. So once you actually are inside Bonfire, once you've signed up, just click join at the top and scan that QR code. If you've got any issues, we've got a table out front. You can go talk to people there. And if you're already in the Bonfire, you can also click invite at the top, and you can send an email invite, SMS to anyone else. And the QR code is also accessible from the details page within the Bonfire. So thanks a lot. Thanks for having us, Perry.
What else is kind of interesting, I was talking to Mark at lunch, and Tom and Keith just kind of even talking about, how maybe Bonfire could even be used within the online sort of teaching environment to kind of bring the classroom together and kind of a portal where students can actually talk and have conversations as though they were like in a real class. But you were saying you're kind of looking at stuff like that, so which I think is like a cool application. Yeah, great. Yeah. So where's NetBase? Oh, there you go. I didn't see the back of it. Right, so guys, I want to introduce John from NetBase. So again, NetBase is, again, we kind of teamed up with NetBase. We're going to do kind of our social listening tool for the social media sort of class. And are we streaming over there yet or not? What are we?
I don't think so.
This is what I got, so.
Yeah,
okay, we got a few little issues, but we'll work them through.
So come up to the table afterward, and I can show you a live demo. You can stream the hashtags from the event. Just, can you hear me okay?
Just hold it closer.
You need it closer.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. So yeah, I'm with NetBase. We provide some technology to Perry and some of his classrooms for doing social listening. That's not our primary business. Our primary business is going out to agencies and brands to provide the social listening. So I have some examples of how some of our clients are using it today. Might be interesting to the attendees. Do you have the deck, Thomas?
What was the name of it?
I can.
UMSI. Got it. There you go.
There we go. So one of our clients is Taco Bell. During the World Series last year, they had a free taco giveaway. It was a steal a base campaign. So once someone stole a base, they were going to decide on a date to give away tacos to the entire country. During the World Series, they changed their campaign based on what we surfaced. We've been bringing this message to other brands, and they're saying, no, we can't do that. So the next slide. During the Olympics, or going into the Olympics, Coke's another big client of ours. They were saying to us, no. We can't change anything during the Olympics. It's all planned. It's been planned for years now. We're going with what we've planned. And we said, well, there's no sense in listening afterward. The real value is listening during the event. So during the event, we started listening. We started surfacing things. They changed their plans during the event based on what they saw that was resonating with the community. So that's what social listening is about. Yes, so they had daily programming. BTV is daily streaming that they were doing. And they had content planned for every day of the event. But what they found was that there were things resonating during the event that were more attractive and more engaging to the audience that they built some production around based on what we were surfacing. A more recent example is during the NBA All-Star Weekend. We were in the production studio monitoring all the conversations around the event, from the dunk contest to the rookie game to the game itself, and helping to put on that production. So they were using us to see what was resonating with the community and which production elements were working, so to kind of give it immediate feedback. So that's what NetBase does. We do social listening, and we do it in a way that's fast, easy to use, and accurate, which can power a number of different types of use cases. So our clients use us in a variety of ways to help advance their marketing efforts. That's it. That's NetBase.
And you guys also just bought. Is that not public?
Hey, that's not public, no. Yeah. I think we're doing very well. So we're growing very quickly. Yeah, love to speak with any of you after the event. We have a table set up outside, and I can actually demo the product live. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, guys, let's.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Mute.
I think the other.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why you mute it.
I'll blame that on Jenna. Okay, let's give that a try. Okay. All right, so guys, what we've got next is we are going to basically bring up David from Forsee. We've got Ellen from IBM. Let me just give a
Get away from the podium.
Get away from the podium. Yeah, but this one's off. Okay. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, so. Can you hear me? No. No? Hello? Hello? Green or orange? It's green. You're on. Hello? Hello? Yeah, it's okay? Yeah? Okay.
Barely.
Okay. I'll talk loud. I'll talk very loud. So I wanted to just do, sorry guys, I wanted to do a quick intro of David and Ellen here. Again, David is the Vice President of Forsee, manages the business units focused on the public sector, including government departments and agencies, and he'll go into a little more detail about what Forsee does. Ellen, we just saw Ellen's bio here, is the Marketing Executive, General Business Marketing for the U.S. West at IBM. And again, they're going to have a very good dialogue up here. Kind of, basically what I've set them up to do, guys, is kind of set the foundation of our discussion today. So kind of where we're at digitally with respect to the marketing budget, our trends in terms of usage of mobile, showrooming. So we're going to just kind of set the stage of which kind of everything, all the rest of the discussions are kind of going to resonate off of. But what I want to do, if you guys want to come on up and sit down, I'm going to kick it off with a quick, my quick video, which I think will just kind of set the stage of where we're at, and then we'll get into kind of some dialogue. Excellent. I mean, I think that just kind of says it all, what we're trying to do. And I don't know if any of you guys saw, I just read this morning from Business Insider. Actually, no, it was Media Post. I'm not sure if you guys saw that Barack Obama just appointed a data czar. So to keep a close eye on what we're doing with all of this data that we're collecting on our consumers out there, on all their digital footsteps. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and Ellen will talk a little bit of kind of about data as well. But again, it's just something we have to be careful with. Again, as marketers, we have to make sure we're very transparent and very open about kind of what we're doing and how we're using the data, how we're storing it, all that sort of stuff. So it's all coming down to all that information. Okay, so let's get started. So we got some good dialogue going to happen up here on stage. You want to come up there? Okay, so again, I'm going to have Dave and Ellen just first introduce themselves.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Whoever the mic person was back here. Someone's in charge there. But thank you for joining us, and it's great to be here as well. And again, great job for Perry putting this thing together. So I want to thank him for all that he's done. My name is Dave Lawan. I'm Vice President of Sales at 4C. I'm not sure if you're familiar with 4C. You might be introduced to us in a way that you might take an invitation to take a survey online potentially, or on your phone or your tablet. But we were started in 2001, spun out of the University of Michigan. We're based in Ann Arbor. That's where I came from. And so what we do is we apply science and technology to the measurement analysis of voice of customer. So we'll talk about some of those things and what we're doing in measuring the experience that that people have with you and all your different channels that you communicate with them. One of the things that we were talking about before, we use the American Customer Satisfaction Index, the ACSI methodology. You may have heard of it. Rooted in academia, was first published in 1994, University of Michigan, and my responsibilities are over private sector, but as well as public sector. And 4C and the ACSI methodology is kind of the gold standard for measuring citizens' experiences that you have with departments, agencies, and programs throughout the government. So we can go ahead and advance the slide.
Doesn't some of the government websites have like some of the best experiences or the highest satisfaction scores, or is that correct?
Yeah, it was interesting. Is now it's one of the things that might be lowered expectations a little bit, but you know, it's interesting because of now we're going to talk about how things have gone crazy from a digital perspective, and a lot of focus on digital. And you think of things that over the last 10 years is, you know, offline. We don't compare a grocery store with a bank with a restaurant, right, necessarily, but we do compare online, right, one website from another. And so as a result, yeah, people are comparing federal government websites to those that they visit in the private sector. We've got, there are a few that score higher. We score, ACSI methodology uses a 0 to 100 score, and those that are score over 80 are very satisfied visitors to those sites. And we've got a couple in Social Security that actually outperform Google and Amazon. So pretty cool. And they set the right expectations, and there's a lot about setting the right expectations. We'll talk about that as well. And then also perform very well. So thanks for pointing that out as well. So we work with a lot of private sector organizations, public sector, higher education. So with some of the, you know, students are looking at opportunities, right? And so they're looking at websites, they're looking at their smartphones or their tablets to shop where they should go to school. But some of the things we've, you know, since 2001, we've got data from over 96 million surveys that have been presented to visitors. So that gives you kind of a high-level overview of who we are. So that helps.
Ellen?
Yep.
Very good, thank you. First I'll ask, anybody in the room not know who IBM is? Okay, so I think we're cool there. As Dave said, I handle marketing for the western half of the United States for our client organization. But as you'll see as we talk through the conversation today, commerce, mobile, digital, all of it is just exploding, and it permeates every piece of IBM, whether you're in the services, the software, or again, the client organizations like I am. And, you know, that video said it all, didn't it? It's all about this empowered consumer. And so, as you think about mobile, social, digital, it's affecting everything we do. It affects the way we communicate with each other, with different suppliers, with vendors. It also changes business models. And what we're seeing become very pervasive across not only the United States, but across the globe, is the landscape of commerce has changed. And so at IBM, we think the path through that is what we call smarter commerce. And we've divided it into 4 sections, if you will, or 4 different phases that people go through. And during the buy phase, it's all about analyzing your supply chain, your suppliers, your partners, how you manage your inventory, how you manage your data warehouse. The list goes on and on and on. And it's not just thinking about how can I make it work a little faster, a little better. It's how do I glean insight from that? How do I optimize it based on the customer and what they perceive their requirements are? Do I need to rethink what my channel partner looks like? Do I need to have them play a different role? Do I even need a channel partner now, or have they been completely taken out of the equation? So it's all based on that empowered consumer. They are right in the middle of every decision that gets made. The next phase of it we think of as the market phase. You're trying to get your message out there across all these different channels. It's all about gleaning insight, meaningful insight that you can use. You heard Dave talk about what they do. It's all about the insight that I can achieve by looking through the information that comes across on any of the different social channels, through the web, through any other means, if I'm a retailer, through my brick and mortar store, but understanding what that is and how can I make useful information out of it that helps me differentiate what I offer to that end user customer. This is where things like big data comes into mind. You know, the unstructured data, structured data, it comes at us from all over the place. Anybody in here that's in the IT environment, you know, that manages that maybe for a corporation or helps as an agency, helps one of your clients understand how they need to modify the way that looks to better take advantage of their customers, it's massive, the impact to you and the change that it's going to make on your organization and the way you think, the way you spend your money, the way you spend your time. And the next phase of the cycle we think is the sell cycle. And this is all about making sure that you're delivering a consistent, relevant message across all those touch points. If you think about, we're all shoppers in here, right? So if you think about the last thing you shopped for, where maybe you looked several places for it. I shop a lot for clothes. I have 2 daughters, you know, that are 20-something, so I spend a lot of time doing that. And I still love to go in the stores. I'll look there. I look on my phone as I'm going to the store. You know, is anybody having a sale? What's it look like? I'm going to check Amazon. Can I get it for less if I go out to Amazon and buy it? You know, if you think about the mobilization of the world and how interconnected, how digitized everything is, it's your phone, it's the iPad, it may be your TV, it may be your car. All of those touch points as you interact with your customer need to be consistent on the kind of message you put forward. Again, for the folks in here that deal with IT, that is an enormous challenge. And then we think the 4th phase is service. And frankly, that's just delivering flawless service at every single point that you touch that customer. Much easier said than done, but critically important in today's competitive environment. So we feel like smarter commerce is delivering measurable business outcomes. We're talking money here, new contacts, things that you can actually turn into revenue for your company. We think it's very critical to take a strong look at your organization and how you're addressing it today. So, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ellen. I think actually you're up next. You want to talk about the changing kind of, Ellen's going to talk us through kind of the changing budget and in terms of the advertising budget and the marketing budget.
Click a couple more times. Whoops. Only once.
Oh.
Back to, there you go. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. This is literally, when Perry asked me to look at this question, I thought, you know, why not look inside IBM? What do we do? And we spend millions on digital marketing every year, and we have a very extensive marketing organization, as you might imagine. When we look at digital marketing, or as Perry mentioned, advertising, we combine it all into a marketing mix. We were spending 10% of that marketing mix dollar in 2009 on digital presence. And that was whether we were putting an ad out there, whether we were putting content out there. Didn't make any difference what it was. If it was digital, it was about 10%. 2 years, that jumped up to about 40. And you see it continues to escalate. You can see the different touch points, the decision cycles that we're going through at each one of those stages. It's critically important for those of you, especially students studying marketing today. Think about this kind of scenario and how you need to be prepared to be a part of this and play a leadership role as companies, not just IBM, whether they're big, small, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter, but how their marketing spend changes.
Good. And just let me also state, I mean, what's your percent of digital? You said about 60? About 60%. I mean, just in general, on average, you're talking now the advertising budget, about 25% is roughly digital, is what it is, and of that, about half is search, or a little more than half is search. So again, it certainly makes sense. IBM's going to be a little heavier on the digital side in terms of the marketing mix. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Okay, Dave, so let's just talk a little bit about the changing kind of shopping experience, which I think Helen alluded to a little bit, and kind of the term rooming and how mobile's playing a much larger role in the decision process.
Sure. Okay. Well, we're all consumers, right? So let's go ahead and advance the slide, and we'll talk about, so as consumers, we're all getting a lot smarter, right? So we have more information at our fingertips. Access to that information is prevalent throughout. The web started it, then mobile really took it to the next level. And so whether you have if someone's on the other side now and someone managing different channels, if someone is walking the aisles in your store, viewing your broadcast in your banks, on the university website, or talking to one of your customer service reps in your contact center, that information is at their fingertips. And that information leads to knowledge, and then knowledge, of course, gives them power. I mean, it used to be where you would walk into a retailer, and oftentimes that associate had more knowledge about the product than you had. It's not necessarily the situation anymore, right? And if it is, you just go to your smartphone and you can access and do some product research right there. So it's very important to understand that the power is in the hands of the consumer, right? We have it as consumers. And so if you think about it too, is they also have loud voices, right? As consumers, we have loud voices. It's not just about ticking off the one customer that we hope that goes away during that time during a shopping experience. But they tell people through social media, right? And it's amplified through social media. On the other end, you've got social media people that have big ears, so they're hearing the information loud and clear about you and about your brand. So, and also from a competitive standpoint. It doesn't really take a large investment in infrastructure anymore like it used to have a competitive advantage. So whether if it's particular channels that they're shopping you, whether it's web, mobile, contact center, your stores, or the competition, the switching costs have really lowered. Okay, so people can leave pretty easily. So it used to be that location, location, location were the three most important words in business. Well, now it's really the customer, the customer, the customer. And at the same time, it's like, what's going to have someone do business with you? The customer experience. So let's go ahead and we'll advance the slide one more time. We're talking about showrooming. Anybody? Clap. There we go. Thank you. So when we look at showrooming, I kind of look at it as kind of half glass full. I guess it is a half glass of beer, so it does make some retailers drive them to drink, maybe.
And David, I think you might just need to explain it to. Don't assume everybody knows exactly what it is.
You bet. So the concept of showrooming is a retail thing. It's where people are shopping you and looking for a better price somewhere else. They're cloning themselves. Remember the powers that we have as that super consumer. Now they can clone themselves. They can be your competitors. They can be shopping online. And there's all sorts of stories you might have in your own world that you notice it's a lower cost online than it is in the store. So why is that? If you're a loyal customer, how does that affect you and your loyalty to that brand? potentially if they're selling it on a lower cost online versus right there when you're in the store. So, like I said, drives some retailers to drink, but there's an opportunity. It's half glass full. It's an opportunity for the other retailers that might be pushing customers away, and you have an opportunity if you do well on that side to be able to close that deal from your end. Go to the next slide, please. So we did a study, and this is down here at the bottom, and you can access some of the information on 4C.com. But we do a lot of studies, and what we did we did the holiday research study for e-retailers, and talked about how many people were actually using their phone while they were in the store. So 24%, we had about, thank you. So we had about 40,000 respondents or shoppers that were measured during this period, the middle of November towards the end of December, and 24% of the people were using their phones. But it's not all bad news necessarily, because 60% of them were shopping the store's website. So it's not necessarily they were at Target and they were going to Amazon to get a better price, but they were going to Target.com potentially. Now on the other side, there were about a third of them actually were looking at competitors' websites. So you can kind of see here they look at shopping comparison sites, about 20% of those, and then about a little bit less than 10% were actually going to a competitor's website while they're in your store. So one of the things we talk about mobile and how do you improve mobile, and really this first line, you can't really manage what you don't measure. Just kind of comes from the Deming days of the quality movement. And the key thing is we could probably take it a step further. And can you really improve something if you don't measure? And people might say, well, yeah, I can probably make some improvements. But if you're looking to lower your cholesterol, or if you're in a weight loss program, or if you're trying to improve your golf game, if you're trying to improve, you're not keeping score, how would you know? And so that's some of the things when we look at mobile. If you're working for an organization, you have a new mobile strategy that's been implemented. Maybe over the last couple of years you've been kicking tires, and now there's a large percentage of your web traffic is coming via mobile. So more and more, where a year ago it might have been 12%, now it's like 25% of traffic might be coming to your website via mobile. That's really important to measure that experience. What do you want people to do as a result of that experience on mobile? We talk about adaptive design, responsive design. There's all sorts of different technologies that are in play. But at the same time, it's about that experience. What do you want people to do as a result of that experience? So that's a key point, is to measure it. So we're going to talk a lot more about mobile, digital strategies, and things like that, but that kind of sets the foundation. It's key to measure the customer experience.
Yeah, and then before, Ellen, I hand it over to you, I mentioned something to David. Ellen, I don't know if any of you guys saw the news story a few days ago. Again, I don't know where the woman was located, but she was going to start charging a $5 browsing fee. So if you came into her store and you shopped and you didn't buy, she's going to charge you $5 as you walk out the door. So anyway, just some kind of interesting. I have no idea if that's going to survive or not. So let me hand it over to Ellen.
Okay, and just something for the students in the room. Think about that same scenario. You know, we talk about mobile and the phones and the iPads and so on that we're all so addicted to now. But think about if you're the manufacturer of that device, how does all of this affect you? How do you deal with the clients, with your customer, end user customer, to be sure you're garnering the right kind of information from them about your product and using it effectively to develop your new ones? So it's not just this retail environment. It touches everything and everybody. Now, one of the other things that Dave asked me to talk about was the siloed customer experience and how that looked 10 years ago and how it's changed today. I think we can all, even based on the conversation that we've had so far, we can appreciate what the siloed experience is, right? If you were creating a marketing plan for a retailer and you were only considering their brick and mortar scenario, that structure, you're missing the boat. That would definitely be a siloed approach to marketing. That's not the way people function today. It's across all these touch points, across all these different channels. So as you look at the progression that's been made over the last 10 years, 4 years, 5 years, 2 or 3 years, it's not do you use a phone when you're in a store, it's what else did you do on the way to the store? Did you look at your iPad? Did you check it out someplace else? You know, obviously I use an iPad. I should use a more generic term there, but it's pervasive electronics throughout the very fabric of our lives. And so that customer experience that we keep talking about needs to include all of those touch points. You can't just look at one of them anymore. And one of the other things, Dave asked me to share with you all, when you look at how IBM is addressing this, we talked a little bit about smarter commerce at the beginning. Within that framework, that upper right-hand quadrant of marketing, we also have a smarter marketing portfolio. And as you look at all of the products, the companies that IBM has purchased to build out that portfolio, we've invested over $3 billion in these companies, and we are still investing today. This doesn't have a couple of them that we've just added in the last few months, but it touches every piece of the value chain as it relates to marketing. So we're expanding. Other companies are doing the same, but it's pervasive, and it's going to be, frankly, a very exciting career opportunity for the students that are in the room.
Absolutely, totally great. Dave, you want to touch base on kind of the experiences the consumers are having?
Yeah, it's just show of hands, how many people are working in marketing right now? Okay. So one of the things that, we have in front of us as from the marketing perspective is that there's a challenge because people are consuming information about us, about our brands through multiple channels, right? And so I'm not telling you something you don't know, but though it's really important to understand those experiences as they go from channel to channel. But so just to kind of set things up, if you look at today's analytics and we're focused, there is a lot of focus on that single channel or the touch point specific measurement. So we look at the kind of things related to a specific channel. It might be contact center, might be looking at store operations, web, and then mobile by itself. But how do these play together? And so it's really important to be able to have a really holistic and understand the life cycle that our customers take with us. Also, there's a focus on really operational and tactical insights. It's great, more and more organizations we talk to, that there are some senior people that are focused on customer experience. And as frontline managers, they're reporting up customer experience, so it is becoming more and more a strategic thread within the organization. So that's kind of a highlight that we're seeing more often now. But analytics are still dominated by behavioral information. So it's good to know how many people came to a website, for example, and what page they came on, how long they were there, how many pages they went to, and where they exited from. But at the same time, from a behavioral standpoint, we don't know if that was a good experience or not. Are they going to come back? If we do an ad campaign and we have 50,000 new sets of eyeballs coming to the site, is that a good thing or not? What was the experience that they had? What do we want them to do as a result of that experience? And so we've done some studies around feedback versus measurement. And when we talk about feedback, it's good to get from your customers. It's good to hear from your customers. It's good for them to have an access point to be able to say, okay, I want to raise my hand and tell you how I feel about this. If you chart it out, you would look at it, that kind of smile chart where you've got people that have a real negative experience you hear from most. Those that have a great experience, you hear from a little bit less, but hardly ever that typical user. About 90% of your visitors or customers that are coming to the channels, if you're not measuring and you're not really reaching out to that silent majority and asking their thoughts on the experience that they have, you're missing the people that are really driving your business. So really it focused on, when you look at the kind of the next generation of analytics, there's just three real business questions to keep in mind. Number one, how are we doing? How are we comparing about ourselves over time? How are we comparing against our peers and our competitors? What should we work on? What should we focus our attention on? Which change that we make, which improvement we implement will have the greatest impact on the experience that people have with us? It's important to know those things, because most marketing organizations we talk to, especially in the government, especially in nonprofits and higher ed as well, don't have the time, money, and resources to do everything. You got to pick your battles, and you got to think, well, what are the ones that are going to have the greatest experience? And the reason why is we want to do these things is because we want people to return. We want people to recommend our brand. We want people to find our website, for example, as a primary resource of information versus calling our contact centers that cost me $25 an hour to answer calls. So these are the three business reasons. So when you start thinking about what you're doing internally, these are the things that you should be, simply looking at and saying, how are we doing, what should we focus our attention on, and why. And Perry had asked me about some of the results, and I mentioned what we did with the study at the end of the year related to shoppers. We found that highly satisfied visitor to websites during that time frame that were actually making purchases, those that were highly satisfied versus those that weren't. Those that were highly satisfied, 70% more likely to recommend, 71% more likely to buy in-channel, 65% more committed to the brand overall, and you can see the rest of the percentages. So it's really important to understand that experience, to work on the things that will have the greatest impact on that experience because of trying to get these results.
Thanks, Dave. So the other thing, real quick, I had asked Ellen if she could please share just a little bit with us about a study that IBM did about a year and a half ago.
We surveyed 1,700 CMOs from around the world. Predominantly, the bulk of them are in North America, but we have different views of this information posted on IBM.com. I would encourage anybody that's interested in the full study to go out there and look at it. You'll find a plethora of other kinds of studies and research and white papers and so on that's available free to download if you go to the IBM.com site. One of the things I wanted to call out about the study, since we're talking about the change in digital marketing and the effect it's having on all of us, one of the things that we found in the study when we surveyed these CMOs, we coined this term underpreparedness. What were they most concerned about? What kept them up at night? And we thought this was the one slide that really brings it home. And it's the data explosion, right? What are we going to do about all this stuff that's coming at us left and right from every channel we can think of? And with this empowered consumer, how critical it is, as you heard Dave talk, about making sure that all of those experiences are extremely satisfying with that customer, so they'll come back, and just as importantly, they'll say good things about us in the social media channels to their friends. So very interesting statistics. Again, it's available at IBM.com. Everything's free that's out there, so I would encourage all of you to go out and look, especially students. Let me tell you, it is a great place for you guys to go for research. So anyway, thank you.
So, guys, what we'll do is it okay if we make your presentations available in Bonfire? So what we'll do is we'll make sure and upload those into Bonfire for you guys. And Ellen, could you maybe just post the link for the CMO study? Would that be okay?
Absolutely,
with
glad to.
Bonfire? So that would be good. So let's thank these guys. That leads kind of to the next. It's kind of to the next discussion. We've got Jerry Bernhardt, Bernhardt Associates, is going to come in through, there's Jerry now, going to come in through a Google Hangout. He is a recruiter who is very tied in with the Direct Marketing Association. So every quarter, he does a big survey for the Direct Marketing Association to help understand the changing landscape of marketing roles, responsibilities, those sort of things, and he comes out with that quarterly survey. And I thought it would just be great if he could just kind of share a little bit of his insight in terms of trends. Because again, I think we want to make sure the marketers kind of understand, especially the students that are in the room, understand exactly how things are changing and what's going to be expected of them by their future employers. So Jerry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. We can hear you loud and clear, Jerry. Jerry has a booming voice if you haven't figured it out. So, okay, Jerry, I'm going to hand it over to you. I've just got one slide up here for Jerry, which is just kind of the agenda points he's going to go through. And Jerry, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Thanks very much. And I want to thank Perry for inviting me to participate today and be a part of this very distinguished panel. And thank all of you for coming. You know, when Perry asked me to take part in this program today, I told him the timing was real good because I'm in the process of writing a book on careers in digital marketing. I've been doing my research for about the last 5 months. I was hoping to get it done by now, but it's starting to get really busy around here, so I don't know when I'm going to finish up. But yeah, I should be able to offer a few fresh insights based on that. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of really key people in the business. You know, 5 years ago when employers were calling me, to help with searches for senior level marketing positions, let's say director and higher. E-commerce, digital, mobile, social, they were all kind of nice to haves. Well, now you got to have it. And if you don't have the job experience, then you better have the knowledge. Good news, of course, there's plenty of resources out there to get it, thanks to the same digital technology that's creating all of these opportunities to begin with. I got to tell you, companies are contacting me in ever-growing numbers, looking for digital marketers who have experience with more channels, more platforms, and more importantly, more data. You know, being able to analyze the data and develop customer insight from the data. I guess they call it big data now. And this is something I kept hearing over and over and over again during research for my book. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But I want to start by answering the question many students and those who are entering the profession ask me, why is the future of digital marketing so bright? And, I had, as mentioned, I had the opportunity to interview a lot of thought leaders for my book. And they all laid out a very exciting future for digital, and here's why. Number one, companies need them. In December of 2012, the front page headline on the website of Direct Marketing News read, CMOs declare 2013 the year of digital. And the CMOs were also asked about their hiring plans. Half said they plan to hire new talent in the coming year, with digital being a high priority. I just got a call about 20 minutes ago from an agency in the Mid-Atlantic, a small firm, and they are having a really hard time finding people, and this is very typical. I get a lot of calls from companies that are in remoter areas, and I got to tell you, in those places, shortages are beginning to develop. Again, going kind of down the reason why there's such a bright future here, digital marketing is constantly changing. When I ask candidates what they enjoy most about being in this field, the overwhelming response I hear is they like the fact that it's never static. And when you think about it, it's kind of the antithesis of many professions in which you go to school, you pretty much perform the same job day after day throughout your career. Not so here. You got new technology being immediately put to use to create newer technology, right? It's kind of it sort of self-accelerates. It's industry agnostic. One of the great attractions of digital marketing is that it's used by companies to sell products and services in practically every industry. I'm working with banks, insurance companies, hospitality, technology, you name it. Marketers embrace digital marketing regardless of the industry because of its immediacy, its relevance, and its personalization. It's also somewhat recession resistant. It's certainly not recession proof. But I've discovered firsthand that it's a relatively safe harbor when the economy goes through its down cycles. Even when times were tough 4 or 5 years ago, I got to tell you, companies were still calling me looking for digital marketing talent. It also works for businesses. I'm sure most of the discussion today will center around business to consumer, but many companies, of course, also rely on it. And B2B direct and digital marketing requires a different approach when marketing to customers, their customers, B2B customers, and that's another skill set that companies are seeking out. The other thing is that it's open to anybody, regardless of your background. There are really no barriers to entry. And to prove that, I just placed a guy about 1.5 years ago with a digital marketing solutions provider as a senior strategist at the age of 83, if you can believe it, and I placed him the first time at 79. So what does that tell you? Digital marketing, of course, is also full of a lot of variety. You're not stuck just doing one thing day after day for a long period of time. You won't hear the word digital marketing and boring in the same sentence. It offers relative stability. Most of the people I know who go into this tend to stay there. They don't call me and say, gee, I'm not really happy with digital marketing. Can you get me out of this industry? I never hear that. While job satisfaction can certainly vary depending on your work situation and circumstances, I got to tell you, I do think that digital marketing has a relatively high, what I might call happiness quotient when it comes to your day-to-day work. There are international opportunities as well. Often I hear about companies looking for people who have some international exposure. And the best part of all of this is that the best part's to come. Most of the digital marketing jobs that exist today weren't even around 8 years ago. And we can only imagine the kinds of opportunities that are going to exist 8 years from now. Those who are new to the space sometimes ask me, hey, have I missed the boat? You know, am I too late to the party? Well, I'm here to tell you that I really believe the excitement is just getting underway. I've heard it said many times at conferences by experts in the field, you know, we're only in the very early innings of a game that really has no end in sight. So kind of with all that behind us, I want to talk for a moment about, you know, what are the skills employers are looking for? This is what I live day to day. And, you know, when the conversation turns to that topic, you know, I think a good starting point is this terrific study that IBM put out in 2011, in which they polled, I think it was something like 1,500, 1,700 CMOs, and the results clearly show where the needs are. The study points to, I believe it was 4 key challenges that CMOs are facing, and number 1 on the list is the explosion of data. You know, companies are looking for people who can analyze this ocean of data and extract meaningful insights from it, and use those insights to improve products and services and improve the customer experience. That is number 1. Marketing is more measurable than it's ever been in the past, and you do need to be very comfortable on data if you want to be a successful digital marketer. You need to enjoy digging into the data. You need to enjoy looking for trends and patterns and looking for kind of what I call the eureka moments. You know, what is this data telling us? Aha! You know, this is the one theme that came back over and over and over again when I was researching for my book. And I'll tell you, it's no accident that in my own hiring surveys, which I've been conducting quarterly for the past 13 years, analytic-related positions have dominated the list of jobs in greatest demand in digital and direct marketing. Quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter, it is listed number 1. What else do they need? Well, you know, CMOs talk about the influence of social media, and while they view that as a key engagement channel, I think they struggle with it to some extent because data produced through this media is very unstructured. So again, they need people who can capture the insight, the customer insight that matters. There are more devices and more channels than ever before. This presents a whole new challenge because the experience that happens on one channel only tells us part of the story of that relationship with the consumer. So companies want marketers who know how to interact with consumers in the way that they want to be engaged with, which kind of leads to number 4, and that's shifting demographics. Companies need people who know how to market to the younger generation. They have different patterns of information access and consumer media than we do, their parents. And then, of course, you've got the growing Hispanic population, and marketers are looking for a way to respond to them as well as the aging baby boomer generation. You know, it's important for digital marketers coming into this to really understand the challenge that the CMO faces, because at the end of the day, you know, you're being hired to solve their business problems, and the more you can demonstrate how you've done that, the more attractive you'll be as a candidate. When I talk to those who have been successful in digital marketing, you know, these are some of the areas that stand out, and usually what I'll include in a job description when I'm writing one together. You know, number 1, we've talked about it already, but it's worth mentioning again, and that's very adept at collecting and analyzing data. You know, I put that right at the top. Digital marketers use data to understand consumer behavior and identify opportunities. Number 2, I would say creative thinking. You know, kind of thinking outside the box, thinking outside the bun, you know, looking at problems or situations from a fresh perspective that suggests sometimes, you know, unorthodox solutions that maybe a little unsettling at first. You know, keep in mind, digital marketers do an awful lot of experimenting. Other than R&D, I can't think of too many other professions where you get to experiment with things on a daily basis more than in digital marketing. And that kind of segues into the next thing, which I call intellectual curiosity. You know, digital marketers, you know, are really obsessed with learning why tactics work and why some don't, and how they can do it better the next time. You know, I've always said that if digital marketers had to choose another profession, they'd be great detectives. You know, they want to know more than just the what and the how. They also want to know why. The other thing is you need to be very home with technology. Digital marketers are fluent in the technical aspects of digital marketing. That does not mean that you have to sit down and code all day long. That's what programmers do. But technology is kind of the digital marketing, you know, like a tailwind is the pilots. I mean, it's always pushing you ahead. And the best digital marketers, just like the pilots, you know, can use it to their advantage. Communicating effectively with IT, speaking their language. You need to be adaptable. all companies want marketers to be adaptable. In digital marketing, that's particularly important because the only thing that doesn't change is change. What might have been considered a crazy idea yesterday might be tomorrow's most anticipated experiment. And fully 1/2 of the companies that I worked with last year weren't even around 10 years ago. And in the process of working on my book, I will tell you that more of them mentioned adaptability than just about any other skill set. You also need to be very collaborative. When I look at all the different specialties within digital marketing, whether it be email, e-commerce, social, you're working very closely with many other groups and departments within the organization who are not they're not experts at digital marketing. Sometimes you have to be able to influence them, and you have to kind of play the role of digital evangelist. And finally, you need to have a really good thirst for knowledge. Digital marketing is, by definition, a lifelong learning exercise. Technologies and solutions that work now could be outdated tomorrow. And the good news about all this, of course, is that those very same innovations have never made it easier for learners to be kept informed about the latest advancements. So what I want to do now is I'd like to kind of turn to maybe some of what I call the up-and-coming jobs of the digital age, positions that are here now, but we're going to be seeing a lot more of. These are sort of at the top of my list. I'm putting Chief Privacy Officer at the top here. I think, and our IBM person would know more here, but I think IBM actually was the first company to name a Chief Privacy Officer some 12, 13 years ago. And one of the analysts for Gartner said at the time that the Chief Privacy Officer is a trend whose time has come, and that was back in 2000, and it has. Many other Fortune 5s have hired their own CPOs, and it has emerged in response to the growing backlash by consumers over the collection and use of personal data. So, and add that to the growing proliferation of devices and the explosion of consumer data that's available, and it's not difficult to see a need for a C-level data protection steward. Many of them typically have legal backgrounds. So, if you're a digital marketer with a law degree, the field of privacy could be a very attractive career path. Next I put on the list is content officer. Whether it's called a CCO, a VP of content marketing, a director of content marketing strategy, the explosive growth of digital content is going to create the need for people to manage it and disseminate it. And already companies are starting to define content management as a distinct discipline within their organizations. I'm actually seeing journalists get into this field, which kind of makes sense. They're good writers. Many of them understand business, and now this allows them to combine their love of writing with digital technology. The next one I want to talk about was the Chief Digital Officer, which is becoming increasingly common among multinational companies that are largely publishing and entertainment. Anywhere where digital media has become an important revenue stream. But I kind of see it becoming more common in retail and hospitality, consumer goods, financial. It's a full-time job just keeping up with all the fast-changing technology that's going on. And the CDO plays a really interesting role. I mean, they're kind of like the digital evangelist, a transformative thought leader at the highest level. And they have to influence and guide others outside the e-business team to rethink traditional customer marketing strategies and provide that vision and that leadership and direction to develop and implement digital marketing initiatives across the company. Gartner predicts that by 2015, 1/4 of all large corporations will have a CDO. So those are some of the up-and-coming positions that we'll be hearing a lot more of. Oh, I guess the other one, too, that we should address here very briefly is social media. What's interesting about that, when I was doing research for my book, social media managers, of course, there's a lot of those around now, but to give you an idea where I think the future of this is going, for the book I interviewed the social media manager for Classmates.com. And you think Classmates, my gosh, that's inherently a social business, right? And you think that, gee, they probably had a social media person for the last 5 years. I was fully expecting that to be the case. Well, they just hired this guy about 18 months ago. And I'm sitting here thinking, if Classmates.com is just getting on the social media bandwagon, my gosh, there's thousands of other companies out there that are going to be seriously looking at this as well, obviously. And we're seeing that happen now. And I'm getting more calls for that than just about anything right now. That's a hot, hot space. And that's on my list of top 5 there. So I also wanted to, in the remaining moments I have here, I wanted to go over a little bit about educational preparation. Today, of course, students are at a huge advantage over those who got into this 15 years ago. The pioneering .coms became the stuff of case studies, to help us all understand what was done right and what was done wrong. And for students who are looking at careers in this field, I highly recommend you take some technical courses in both computer science and data analytics. In order to be successful in digital marketing, you really have to be able to communicate technical ideas to non-technical colleagues. You really do need to have a foot in both worlds. Now, if classes in math and statistics don't particularly get you excited, if that's a little too abstract for you, then consider classes in psych, sociology, maybe educational management, educational measurement, I guess it's probably what it's called. These are all subjects that, of course, will develop your quant skills. I have an econ degree, so that's really served me well, too. Undergrads often ask me, is getting an MBA something that I should really look at? Will that help boost my job prospects and help advance my career? And I say, the short answer is kind of maybe. The candidates I've worked with who generally benefited the most by going to B school are the ones who want to become leaders someday. And granted, there are plenty of senior execs with undergrad degrees who've made it to the top, by climbing up the ranks. But an MBA is going to teach you invaluable skills that would take you a long time to acquire on the job. And perhaps most importantly, it's going to give you broad exposure at a more advanced level to a wide variety of disciplines within the organization, like accounting, operations, international business, strategy. Remember we talked about the highly collaborative nature of digital marketing, and this is where an MBA can really help out. And then, of course, it also translates into higher earnings over your lifetime. I've seen, and Perry can probably address this more than me, but a candidate with an MBA can command as much as a 10 or 15% in a higher annual salary compared to those who don't have one. There are interactive marketing associations all over the country. You'll find an association of interactive marketers offering education, networking, and advocacy in all major cities. They have guest speakers. I've gone to a lot of these, and it's a great way for me to mingle and get to know the local players. Great for someone who's looking for an opportunity. And I can't think of a better way for someone to keep pace with all the latest trends in technology. The other thing, too, I want to talk about for a moment was Marketing Edge. It used to be called the DMEF, the Direct Marketing Educational Foundation, which I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with. They've changed their name, and it's now called Marketing Edge. And it's really kind of the only foundation of its kind that prepares students for successful careers in direct and interactive. And I think, they engage something like 3,500 students, 500 professors, and almost 1,000 schools. And their website, I think right now, is directworks.org, but that's changing. But you can go to DMEF and find it online. They have some great programs, and I highly recommend it. And Perry's probably very familiar with that particular organization. The one thing I wanted to talk about, also just kind of in closing, and then I'll open it to questions. I get a lot of questions from analytic people saying, I find myself kind of at a fork in the road. You're going to find a decision that often takes you in two different directions. Do you continue on the technical side, or do I move more into marketing and become more focused on the business? A lot of analytic people that I've worked with over the years eventually kind of reach this decision point, and this is kind of where it takes some serious introspection and maybe some guidance from a boss, a guidance counselor, a colleague, a teacher. And my advice to everybody is kind of know what you're good at and play those strengths. Not everybody has the communication skills to speak the language of executive level decision makers, or the ability to get up in front of a room full of people and deliver a powerful business presentation. I know a lot of individual contributors who are well compensated as senior project managers, and they're interacting with internal business leaders all the time. They're working with clients. They're demonstrating cool new products. They came up on the technical side. These positions in turn can open up opportunities, in things like business analytics, business intelligence, And while those areas may have less of a connection with web analytics, they're good stepping stones that can lead you to other leadership opportunities. And then, of course, for those of you who can combine the analytics and technology with the business know-how, well, your path can lead you into more senior level marketing opportunities, consulting, a lot of opportunities, just like there is really on the technical side. So, bottom line is, instead of trying to improve what you might perceive as your core weaknesses, think about strengthening those areas that you're naturally good at. And then again, consider an MBA, if your long-term goal is to become a business leader, like a marketing analytics director, let's say, or a VP. The other thing that I do want to pass on, which I think is important, this is again for the analytic people that are in the crowd. Your value to a company and the contribution you make to the bottom line are directly proportional. So think about, make that link as visible as you can, and your worth to your employer will be recognized. So based on all of that, does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Jerry. Does anybody have a question or anything? Did anything come through the screen? No? No? So, Jerry, I think we're good, and really appreciated it, and very, very informative. And then we do have, I think we'll push this little slide also out to Bonfire as well, which just has Jerry's contact information. Okay? All right, thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Okay, so now, guys, we got some really cool discussion with Nielsen and with Evidon. So it's going to be a little heavy on data discussion. So just going to warn you, and then we'll lighten it up with a little discussion of Mizzou. Okay, so I think who's up first? Todd? You're up first. Yep. Okay, super. So, guys, Todd is the vice president at Nielsen. He can give a little more information on his background, and we've got Scott, who basically created Evidon, and which is an important organization. So, and guys, I'm sorry. So, guys, please feel free if you need to use the bathroom, get water, whatever. Go for it.
Can you guys hear me all right? Just fine. All right, perfect. Looking on my deck.
What was the name of it?
Should say Todd.
Todd?
You got it.
I don't see Todd. What's his company?
It's
Nielsen.
Nielsen.
Do you have it on your software? Did you still keep it on the? Did you still keep it on there?
Was it one we had yesterday?
Yeah, it was there yesterday.
No.
No.
You said you don't remember what it's called. There's Andrews, link for Perry.
Bummer.
Go ahead and tell them to start. I'm going to go ahead and try to get it real quick. Do you know if it was emailed?
You don't happen to have it on a stick, do you? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys.
And you'll wait for getting one.
I got it. It's right here.
You want to go ahead and start a little bit?
It's
So
up.
guys, let's go
It's
ahead
up.
and get started a little bit until he gets the deck up.
Cool.
It's
All right.
up.
I'm going to go ahead and get started,
Yeah.
just so we can stay on track here. Oh, perfect. Okay. So my name is Todd Boudin. I'm the vice president of advertising effectiveness at Nielsen. I'm on clicker here. All right. Perfect. So actually, and I work in the product management group. So if you're not familiar with product management, I suggest you go look it up. It's a career field, a discipline that I was not familiar with when I was sitting in your seat 10 years ago. It's one that I fell into. Love it. It's a great blend of technology and business. Just Google product management and you'll find some great information about it. So I work for Nielsen. Nielsen specializes in kind of the being in the center of what consumers watch and what consumers buy. So most folks are probably familiar with Nielsen based on our TV ratings. So we monitor TV viewing in 29 countries. We also cover internet usage, mobile usage in 16 countries. And then we're on the buy side as well. So we're capturing transactions from almost 500,000 retail stores here in the U.S. to see what you guys are buying every single day. We also test product concepts. So think about something like the Swiffer. Before the Swiffer came out, we're testing CPG companies. All sorts of companies are testing products with companies like Nielsen before they launch. So we're heavily into what consumers watch and what consumers buy. So I specifically help advertiser clients understand if their advertising is working. And then in a product management function, I'm helping to build scalable systems to kind of measure this globally. So I started off with Nielsen. I started off in social media, so I did 5 years in social media research. And prior to that, I actually went to graduate school here. I chose UMSL. I think I'm probably one of the only speakers here. So 10 years ago, I was sitting where you guys were. There was no talk of digital marketing. The marketing curriculum 10 years ago was the foundational stuff that you need to know, and obviously they're bringing in some professionals like Perry to bring it up to today's what's really happening in today's world. So that's fantastic. And I have to say, 10 years ago, my wife was also going through her graduate program, which was a nationally ranked top 15 school. And she wasn't my wife at the time. She was we were just dating. But we would always compare notes. It was the exact same 2-year cycle. And every weekend we're saying, all right, well, what are you learning? What are you learning? And literally, it was. I felt like we were getting the exact same education. But she was spending about 6 times, maybe 7 times what I was spending. They were using the similar books, similar curriculum. If you guys are in the marketing department or have taken the classes that do the simulation where you group up into these teams and you make purchases and events, external events impact your business. She was doing all of the same things. So I really felt like I got an awesome education at a great value here at UMSL.
We should get you to do a commercial.
All right, so this was unplanned, but I have a couple data points from the IBM CMO study, the survey. So let me start off. Let me lay the foundation here for what I want to talk about today. So advertising is really easy, right? You go out there, you pick some cool creative, a woman wandering around, saying that she likes a particular product. But making good advertising decisions is really hard, right? So the CMOs, those are the people at the highest level of the marketing organization. If anyone who works in marketing or an agency or a publisher, the CMO is probably who your boss's boss's boss. So that person's job is really hard, and they're under increased pressure to deliver. Trying to justify your marketing expenditures is a really big challenge, for this person's job. Their CMOs oversee the advertising budget, and an advertising budget is about 2% of our GDP. So there's a tremendous amount of money being spent on advertising in the U.S. By comparison, we spend about 5% of our GDP on public education. So if you think advertising, public education, this person really needs to figure out, make sure they're making the right decisions with regard to that. And this individual spends on average about 3 to 4 years in their role. So you got 2% of the GDP you're playing with as your budget. There's all of this new stuff happening. If you read that CMO report, which I recommend you do, you'll see that they're finding the level of complexity in the business world today, with big data, with social, with the proliferation of all of these new devices, highly complex. I'm going to quote one of these IBM data points. So 80% believe the level of complexity is high or very high, and 48% feel prepared to deal with it. So half of these people don't feel prepared to deal with all this complexity that's coming at them, but they have 3 to 4 years to deliver on a huge budget. So a lot of pressure for this individual. And so why is it becoming so complex? Why can't they? Why can't you just buy some TV advertising and call it a day, right? Everyone watches TV, and everyone does watch TV. So from a recent study we did at Nielsen, this has been last year, and I'm going to read off some of these figures for you because the marketing material is a little small. Consumer media usage, it's changing. So where consumers are consuming their media is where we're going to be advertising, right? So consumers spent 144 hours on average in a month watching TV, 28 hours surfing the internet, 10 hours combined of watching video and mobile, video on mobile and video on the internet. So you can see they're no longer spending all their time in front of the television. They're spending their time in a lot of other places. And in addition, 16% of TV households now have a tablet, and 17% have an e-reader. So this guy or gal has to make all these decisions with this big budget, but with the consumers changing their habits, what do I do? So in addition to those data points, everyone's using social media now. Half of social media users are doing it on using it on an app or a mobile browser. And then within TV viewership homes, you have game consoles, you have digital cable, and then you're starting to get internet connected television. So all of these are places where advertising is occurring, right? So if you play an Xbox game, Halo 4, boom, Mountain Dew ad. You have Charter on-demand cable, boom, Clorox ad. There's advertising in all these places, so the CMO needs to figure out, how do I spend my money? And so don't get me wrong when I show you the Xbox and the tablets and all of the other devices that consumers are using to consume their media. TV is really still king. We just did a study probably end of last year that showed the TV consumption, it's staying pretty flat in aggregate. A couple demographics are down, a couple demographics are up. But overall, it's still kind of a mass reach tool. It's not going away anytime soon. What you are seeing is there's more TV viewing or viewing of TV content on non-TV devices. So this is your tablet, this is your mobile, this is your computer. And what's happening here is in the last 4 years, kind of the proliferation of new devices and the advancements in technology are allowing people to watch all this content in these new places. So you can see here, 4 years ago, 5 years ago now, less than 1% of individuals are consuming TV content on a non-TV device. And now you're up to about 6%. So this is a big shift in the way folks are consuming TV content. And so Forrester, and so when content shifts and consumers shift to follow the content, advertisers will be right behind them following the consumers. So Forrester is predicting, in 2011, they had an estimate of $2 billion a year is spent on online video advertising. And we focus specifically on online video because online video is the closest thing to TV. So all those people are following that content to online video. And so they predict that will increase tremendously to about, call it $5.5 billion by 2016. It's still not much of a dent in the overall TV advertising budget. So TV advertising last year in the US, it's about $175 billion spend. So by the time we get to 2016, we're up to about $5.5 billion. It's making strides, and the advertisers are trying to figure out how to follow the consumers.
So Todd, Forrester was predicting what Forrester was predicting by right now, roughly television spends about half the digital budget, 50% roughly, or half the budget, the marketing budget, I think. And they were predicting by 2016 it's going to be about 38%. Is that still the case? Or, I mean, I have not seen the updates on that study.
I don't know.
Okay. So, all right.
I just know that TV budgets. I think the thing is that the size of the pie is getting bigger. Right. So it's not all shifting. You know, everyone's still keeping their dollars in TV because it's tried and true as you can get, and it's remained again like at this about the same growth rate for the last 10 years. You're just getting more dollars spent on the new stuff. I think though as digital, we'll actually go to this next slide here. So here's a nice snapshot, right? So you have these are probably the most traditional channels of media spending. You have print, radio, TV, internet, and mobile. So again, think about this: consumers follow the content, and advertisers follow the consumers. But you have to make it really easy for the advertisers to follow the consumers. So it has to be a simple way to advertise, and ideally know you're hitting the right individual at the right point in time. So digital actually has kind of the biggest opportunity. So more and more consumers are spending time consuming digital or spending time on the internet, spending time on mobile devices, but advertising spend hasn't quite caught up to that. So there is a big opportunity for digital to match the proportion of time spent by consumers. So it's not there yet, and it hasn't carved off its own piece of the pie from TV, but I think it's getting there. So with all of that, what is the CMO to do, right? You have digital, you have TV, you have print, you have a lot of channels to do your marketing. So this is going to be a bit of a new concept for some of you, but what the CMO can do today is they can employ a team of market mix modelers. And so what they do is, they take the data from print, how much did we spend on print, how much did we spend on TV. They take all these data inputs, both from the advertiser, that client, as well as the competitors, and they take in all these other inputs as well. And so they look backwards, say the past year, and they say, okay, with all of these inputs, what actually drove sales? And so they model this stuff out, and they remodel it, and they come up with some great answers. They say, you know what, print worked, TV worked better during this time, and digital worked better during this time. It's really fantastic and a unique science. The problem is by the time you figure those things out, it's been a year. Things have changed. Social has caught on. Bonfire is the #1 social media app, and so you can't make these decisions looking forward based on this data that's so old, right? So they're kind of in this tough position. It's really interesting and great to know, but things are changing so fast. You need the most up-to-date data. Don't worry about that. You need the most up-to-date data. So the ideal situation would be this real-time optimization system that's taking in all of these data points, right? It's taking in your competitor spend, it's taking in the temperature outside, because the temperature is going to influence how much of a beverage consumers consume. It's a real-time optimization system that's predicting what you should be doing based on historical trends. The economy, it's taking in all this data, and it's telling you, today you should be spending on print, but followed it up with TV and then a digital campaign. That would be the ideal situation. We're not there yet, though. Like, this is a really complex stuff, and the ideal state isn't today's state. There's a lot of stuff in between these two states, like attribution modeling, some other real-time optimization solutions. But and that's what I want to talk a little bit about, is how do you get something simpler than that, but isn't quite to the right yet, because the right doesn't exist and is really complicated. So what can we do today? So what Nielsen has tried to do is break down all this complexity around advertising effectiveness into what we call the 3 R's. And so, did you reach your consumer with your advertising? This is the intended consumer. Did your advertising have an impact on their opinion, so that they feel better about your brand? Were they now aware of your brand? Do they like the advertising? Do they intend to purchase your product? And then lastly, the third R is reaction. So did they actually go and purchase your product? So we call these the 3 Rs. It's a pretty simple framework that applies across all the screens, your TV, digital, mobile, and so forth. So if we start, I'm just going to cover the first 2 Rs because I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here that before you get into these crazy mixed models and attribution modeling, I think there's some really easy things that can be done. So the first is around reach. So what ultimately leads to sales lift is reaching your target audience. So if my target is men 18 to 25 and I'm Mountain Dew, I want to make sure all my advertising is hitting those individuals. If my advertising is showing up on a knitting blog, then that's not hitting my target, and that's wasted advertising. So what we've done, let me actually explain why this is so challenging. I forgot I had the slide. So if you've been to a digital
Please,
marketing conference,
no bad comments on Bonfire. Okay.
if you've been to a digital marketing conference or any digital conference, you've seen the slide before. And it's called the Display Advertising Technology Landscape. And it shows you how complicated this is. There's ad exchanges, there's media buying platforms, there's DSPs, there's all of these different groups that when you place your media buy or you tell your agency, yes, I want to advertise to men who are 18 to 25, they go off and they do all of these other things and they work all of these other conversations and these things happen, and then 5 steps later, maybe 10 steps, your advertising is showing up on a site somewhere. Maybe it's showing up on this knitting site. You don't really know how that happens, and it's like I said, it's a really a labyrinth of conversations and relationships. So hence the reason why you need to ensure that your advertising is making it to the right place. So very, very simply, you want to know, were my ads seen by the intended audience? And you can measure this mainly at the publisher level. You can work with your agency, and what you're trying to figure out is what percentage of the people who are exposed to my advertising on that site were actually in my target demographic. Because when you hit your target demographic, you have a better chance of influencing their opinion, and when you influence their opinion, you have a better chance of them buying your product. Which leads to the second R, which is about resonance, influencing their opinion. So again, this is like if you're familiar with the purchase funnel, you really need to get your individuals into the purchase funnel at the awareness level, and then you're working them down the purchase funnel ultimately to a purchase. So as you're getting them into the purchase funnel, you need to know, is my advertising working? Are they now aware of my brand now that they've been exposed to the advertising? Are they more intended? Are they more likely to purchase it, to recommend it? And the ways you can measure this is by surveying. You're out there, you're surveying folks who have been exposed, folks who have not been exposed, and you're ultimately figuring out is your advertising working or not. And what you can actually do during that time is you can make changes in what we call optimization, or real-time optimization. And so you have different pieces of creative. Let's go back to the Mountain Dew ad. You have a guy on an extreme bicycle, a guy on an extreme motorcycle, and a guy on a snowboard. Maybe one of these is working better on a particular website. So the snowboard one is working better on ESPN than the motorcycle. If you can figure that out in real time, that people are connecting more with your brand or remembering your brand by taking that piece of creative on that particular website, you can make those changes on the fly, and you can better use your ad inventory. So highly recommend using a system that can do this for you. So bringing it home here. So a couple final notes here. So before you get out there and you start to get really crazy with trying to figure out every touch point you have with consumers, trying to figure out, is print bringing them in, or is it digital, or is it television? Before you break out these really complex models, like market mix models or attribution models, which is really complicated stuff, and a lot of smart people are trying to figure it out before you do that, tackle the low-hanging fruit. So a couple pieces of low-hanging fruit that I've noticed not all advertisers have tackled. Get really clear on your business objectives. So before you head off and say, all right, I'm going to build this campaign, we're going to launch it, and it's going to make everyone do X. What is X? Is it drive sales? Is it drive traffic? Is it drive awareness about your brand? Maybe people don't even know your brand is in a category that is an unsolved problem. Maybe no one knows that's a problem. So you want to measure, you want to agree on those objectives up front, so you're really clear when you're going down and measuring that. Secondly is understand the channels. Like have a really foundational knowledge of the channels. So TV does something, right? TV is a great mass reach tool. Digital does something else. Online video, something else. Social, really understand what each of those elements does for you so that you can use them in the most appropriate ways. In addition to building, having great or clear business objectives, agree on the metrics that you want to use up front. So is it site traffic? Is it conversion? For the two use cases I mentioned with reach and resonance, it's all about frequency, GRPs. Are you what we call brand lift? Are you lifting? Are you seeing a lift between people who saw your advertising versus people who did not? So you want to make sure you agree on those metrics up front. And then the last two here is in real time, work with publishers who will guarantee you the delivery of your advertising. So you want to work with publishers who, when you provide them a target, they're going to hit some specific threshold. You'll call it 75% of your target. You want to work with those folks and publishers who will optimize. So they're not always going to get it right, but if they're willing to catch that they're not hitting their target and make changes on the fly and improve the chances for your advertising to hit the right people, then that's a good thing. You want those kind of partners to work with. The same thing with your advertising to see if it's working and improve your chances to make it work. You want partners who are out there measuring in real time, swapping out creative for you, moving your ad placements around to ensure your advertising is working the best. And then lastly, have a good point of view on all of these learnings from campaign to campaign. So don't take each campaign in isolation. So if you learned over here that you do great on Facebook with this kind of audience and not so good on this other side with this other audience, carry those learnings across campaigns and build up benchmarks as you're going along and socialize this throughout your organization so everybody can really understand and come along with up the learning curve. And also get a point of view on how your media works cross platform. So if you're working a TV campaign and you're also going to launch a digital campaign, really understand what happens when the consumer was exposed to both. Did it make their brand awareness that much higher? Did it increase purchase intent? What were the results of cross-platform exposure? If you keep some of those basics in mind, I think you can spend a little time improving your advertising as opposed to going and trying to figure out very complex methods to advertising effectiveness.
Can I just ask a question? So when you say cross-platform kind of exposures and what's that doing for the brand, are you talking totally through the use of panels and surveys again? Or how is that being done? Yeah. Okay. So again, when are we going to be able to take the next leap across devices and channels? Right? What is Nielsen doing? Anything?
When are we going to take the next leap? It's expensive. It's expensive and complicated. I think it's always going to be panel based to some degree because you want to work with the same individual, unique individual, to know if did they get exposed to the TV ad, did they get exposed to digital, mobile, radio, print. So it's an always evolving challenge.
Scott, so let me introduce Scott, and I'm kind of anxious to hear what Scott has to say. He's, again, being a data guy, I just kind of want to hear what's going on. And Scott, you heard about the issue with President Obama, right, with the data czar or whatever?
The latest one?
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
So, thanks, Perry. And just quickly in the room, how many of you are marketers? a lot of marketers. How many of you are students? Okay, awesome. And how many of you want to come to New York and sell or write code for me? You will at the end. Thank you. So we're hiring up really fast. How many of you know Ghostery? All right. Well, by the end of the presentation, you'll know Ghostery, and I think what I'm meant to do up here is try to pull together a couple themes that keep coming up. One is this disconnect between the CMO and the tech people. The other is the sheer complexity of all those, that chart that Todd just showed you, about all the different hands that touch an ad, and what it means for that conversation between the CMO and their tech people. Because if you think about in the 15 years I've been at this, the internet initially was considered an IT function. Then it became a marketing function. Then it became its own function. And now it's really like electricity. Right? It's just a part of everything. And I loved everything Jerry said except for the concept of the chief digital officer. I personally think the tenure of the chief digital officer as a job is very, very limited. If you look at the turn of the century, a lot of big industrials had a vice president of electricity. Not anymore. So here's what I'm going to cover. So I want to talk, Trace asked me to cover a lot in about 20 minutes. The first one is what's happening on the site that you visit. Because this has big implications for how you run your business and also privacy. It's where they all fit together. Our business works a lot with chief privacy officers. What it means for marketers, and then helping you to manage this complexity of how the Europeans and the Americans approach data collection and privacy very differently. And then I'll show you different ways that companies and consumers are approaching the privacy issue. So the first thing is there's just a lot of money at stake. It's about $500 billion. And all these different pieces, they all fit together. What they all have in common is that there's significant growth in each one of these spaces. There's billions of dollars invested, billions. And when there's billions of dollars invested, there's a lot of opportunity. Smart venture capitalists and entrepreneurs like the folks that back us will throw tons of money at the opportunity. And it's funny that Todd used the Luma partner slide. We chose not to use it, but this is the more artistic representation of it. And fortunately, you're not really in the space until you're on that chart. We're in it, which is great. But in short, it's a mess. It's a total mess. So what you see is that at its most elemental, all the data and all the tags, they're out of control. And whether you're a consumer or a marketer or anyone in business, you can't control what you can't see. So let me go over, I want to do a live demo here. Many of you saw yesterday's New York Times. Yeah, this article with Professor Christie from Carnegie Mellon. Just go to the right.
So watch the mouse up there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the actual web page, and this is Ghostery. So what the consumer sees is a web page. They're not really thinking too much about what's going on. On this one page, there's actually 17 different companies that are tracking. And here's all the code. So this is the actual code representation of everything that was on that stylistic chart that I had, or what was on Todd's Luma Partners chart. Some of these companies you've heard of, like Nielsen Net Ratings, which is part of Nielsen. And let's see, Score Metrics on here? No. But Dynamic Logic is part of WPP, Facebook, Google. Right Media is part of Yahoo. Scorecard Research is part of ComScore. Okay, so these guys are all here. So there's this big difference between the visible web and the invisible web. And what it means for consumers is, and people use Ghostery to find out more about these companies, and they can actually go in and block these companies from tracking you. And that's great. What it means for business, though, is this is what's actually going on the site. These are the actual data flows on this one page. So this is a service that we sell. And so I went in, excuse me, put in that this is the URL of the Christie store. And these are data flows. And this has big implications if you're running any website, because you need to make sure that only the partners that are there should be there.
So what you're showing here is how one company is sharing data with another company. And
Exactly,
so on.
exactly. And most websites have no idea this is actually happening, and there are big implications in terms of, are you holding onto your data? Because data is the new oil. If you're not holding onto it, and you don't have a good understanding of it, you could be letting opportunity go, you could be compromising your consumers' privacy, and also, you could be slowing down your website. This chart shows you how fast or slow each one of these tags in this web page loads. So in this case, fortunately, the Times site is loading reasonably fast. There are no red dots on here. But you've got Acumen Media, which is owned by Omnicom, the big ad agency, Audience Science, Facebook Connect, Nielsen, sorry, but these tags are slow. So this is what's actually going on pretty much every page you visit. And this is where all the other implications come into place. Let me just go back over here, back to the slides. Is everybody getting this?
So this is paid. This is paid. So this isn't the standard Ghostery download.
Correct.
Right?
Well, this is think of it as Prostery. This is the enterprise version of Ghostery. Ghostery is free. Average folks, consultants, academics. If you need more data, just let us know. But this is what most people use Ghostery for all the time. They just try to get a rough handle on what's actually happening. But over the time that we've developed Ghostery, we found is what companies really needed was this. And so that's what this is called Evidon Encompass. And what Encompass does is it enables you to. Thanks.
So if I could just jump in real quick, I just want to make sure everybody knows you can Google Ghostery and just download it. So on Chrome, Firefox, IE, whatever, totally free, and it's really awesome. It's so funny, in one of my classes I got caught off guard. I went to the AARP website, and if you guys want to freak out, I could not believe all the tags that were on the AARP website.
Funny story, we were at a meeting with another Washington-based nonprofit, and we showed them their site, and there wasn't a lot of tracking on it, and we showed them their main competitor, which was like the AARP, and we expected them to be like, oh man, what a disaster. They turned to each other like, they're killing us. This is why, because they're not using the technology effectively. So there's 14 other companies that are collecting data here, and so here's what it means for marketers, which is if you're not, this is good for starters, because this tracking, it drives the market. We're not out there saying this is bad, and frankly, our business is driven. We have about 300 clients. Many of them are these exact tracking companies, so we're not saying these guys are bad. What's bad is not having it under control. This is a lot of what IBM is working on, Nielsen. Everyone who's here is all trying to get at this solution. What's actually happening? How do we harness it? Because if you don't, you let companies take your data without knowing about it, which can devalue the ads that you sell, increase the cost of the ads that you buy. It can slow your web page down, and slow web pages are death, no matter what business you're in. Hurts conversions, hurts SEO, ultimately cost you revenue. And then that's also where if you don't know what's going on and aren't able to control it and disclose it to consumers, this is where the privacy problems come into play. So at the end of the day, it's a very big deal. It can potentially increase your costs and hurt your revenues. So that's this meta issue that marketers really need to understand. So here's the other side of the coin, though, which is the privacy piece. Because you've got, so think about all the data here and what it means. I'm just trying to run my business day in and day out. Now there's this person that Jerry's talking about, and there's 10,000 of them who hold this certification called the CIPP, Certified International Privacy Professional. Any CIPPs in the room? Okay, not yet, but soon enough. That number has gone from 6,000 to 10,000 in the past 3 years. There's a lot of CIPPs out there. These folks are actually there to help you. They're not there to be Dr. No. But all of this stuff fits into what the CIPP does, because they are there to protect the company, to keep you from being on the wrong side of that article in the New York Times. And they have to figure out how to harmonize all the data collection, all that messy stuff that's going on, with what's actually happening legally. And in Europe, it's a very different approach to what's happening in the United States. The Europeans approach privacy, and a lot of this is a vestige of World War II. They view privacy as a fundamental right. And so they have a couple of blanket European-wide regulations that give you these blanket protections, and it poses really two big issues for marketers who are doing business in Europe by itself. And then next I'll talk about what your issues are if you're a global company based in the US. You've got this issue with, many of you heard about the cookie law. You heard this whole thing of, in Europe it's going up, you have to opt in, you're going to have to give your consent on every web page. Not totally true, but it was pretty scary for a while, about 18 months to a year ago. It's now coming down to some realities of giving consent. The way to think about how you collect data in Europe, if you're not using personally identifiable information, is, you ever walk in a restaurant or hotel and there's like a sign outside that says, we're filming a TV show? By walking into this restaurant, you're giving your consent to be in the movie or in the TV show? That's what most websites in Europe are now starting to do. But they have to make sure they're giving you accurate disclosures for what's happening. The next battle, though, which is coming, is a big giant hairball. It's called, conceptually, it's about this concept of the right to be forgotten. Because right now, when you opt out of being targeted, your browser sends a signal and says, don't target me. But there's still a cookie there. You're still in the database. The Europeans believe that there should be this right to be forgotten, which means not just that we're not going to target you, but that conceptually, the targeting company, the publisher, whomever, is going to reach all the way into their database and erase any sign that you ever existed. Which, from a regulator perspective, is like, yeah, sure, that's pretty easy. Anybody work in the data space? Yeah. It's literally like going back to the beginning of the internet. So it's a couple of years off. It's an ongoing multi-year process that's playing out right now. But that's what people in the data space, the big picture stuff, companies like WPP and Google and Facebook are really worried about LinkedIn. Because if they have to retool their systems where someone has the right to be fully forgotten, you have to go all the way back into the database and wipe everything out. You're talking about numbers, like I'm out of fingers and toes about how much it would cost. The US is a lot different. The US is really what's called a sector-by-sector based approach. There's no blanket privacy law, and about a third of our business is out of Europe. We're fond of saying that in Europe there are these very clear laws, but no one has any idea how to comply with them. In the States there's a whole mess of laws that are not very clear, but everyone actually pretty much knows how to comply. So there's a series of sector-by-sector laws. It's a bit of a patchwork. There are laws like HIPAA and healthcare and GLBA and finance. And people who do business where those regulations touch them, they know how to deal with it. As a result, it poses different issues for marketers. It places a lot of emphasis on the success of self-regulation. That's where our business started. Many of you have seen the Ad Choices icon. We power that program. And the government looks to self-regulation to give consumers the protection that they deserve. And then usually there's a backstop, which is typically the Federal Trade Commission, that comes in if there is a breakdown. And companies that are trying to self-regulate do a bad job, and they do things that are deceptive or unfair, and then the Federal Trade Commission will come in and thump you. And it's been fairly effective for about 50 to 60 years. So the question then is, if I'm a global company, I'm Procter & Gamble, I'm InBev, how do I handle this? What am I supposed to do? Because I want to have increasingly a single tech platform deployed globally that can enable me to meet with the local requirements in each country without having to build these different silos. We work with people like Procter & Gamble and MasterCard on exactly these issues because they want to have one central partner, one central set of code, but be able to deliver customized experiences everywhere in the world. So companies look at different solutions, and the first one that a lot of companies look at is this concept of do not track. Everyone's heard of this? Right? The do not call list, which we all know, which is the most successful consumer protection program in history. It is, unless you're a direct marketer, in which case it blew up 2/3 of your industry, which is also true. So our friends at the Federal Trade Commission said, well, we'll just create the do not track for the internet, which the do not call for the internet. The problem with that is, if you use that analogy, that would mean the entire internet had to be regulated. Like in the US, you can only get all the phone numbers are controlled by the government. Can you imagine if every cookie in this country, every tag was controlled by the government? It wouldn't work. But what you have now are people like Microsoft who are coming out with this concept of do not track, and they have led people to believe that this is actually the Mozilla do not track functionality in Firefox right now. It will send out a signal, and consumers will believe that if you're doing this, over here, so you guys can see, no one's going to track you, right? That's actually not true. What it does is it sends out a signal to all these companies that are tracking you and says, don't track me. Okay, but that only works if every company that's there is saying, sure, I'll do that. There's no law, there's no self-regulatory program, there's zero requirement that when you're broadcasting out the signal that anyone has to acknowledge it. So consumers are frequently believing that they're not being tracked by turning this on, and it really does nothing. I've been out. I think it's frankly straight up misleading, and it's definitely confusing. So that's the first approach. The second approach, which is hot on everybody's minds right now, is Mozilla. Have you ever heard about this latest thing that Mozilla's proposing to do? They want to turn off all third-party cookies by default, because they're miffed that do not track isn't working because do not track's not effective. So they're proposing that they're going to turn off all third-party cookies in the next release of Firefox. It's indiscriminate blocking. Unless that cookie is put on your machine, I apologize if I'm getting into the weeds on this, but remember all those dots that you saw on the previous chart? Well, it's going to essentially block those dots from collecting data on you using a cookie unless those dots are owned by the company that owns the website. So Jerry's not going to have a lot of business if this happens. right? Everybody like on this side of the room who wants to work in digital marketing may not have a job because it could potentially wipe out big parts of the ecosystem because it just indiscriminately blocks everything. Because no one can figure out there is no third party that can figure out who's good or bad. That's the whole reason we think it's a terrible idea. Huge risk to small technology companies and mid-sized publishers. And entrepreneurs are smart. They're going to figure out workarounds very quickly. So again, this may launch. Consumers will think, oh great, all my third-party cookies are set to off. I'm not being tracked. And all that will happen is smart entrepreneurs will just work around it inside of what Firefox can do. And you'll end up having the same misleading and ineffective approach. So what we work on, what we think is the better way to do this, is there's two parts to it. One is the industry self-regulatory program. A lot of you have seen the ad choices icon. About 60 to 70% of the ad choices icons that you see on the web, if they're not from Google, they're from Evidon. Think of it like nutritional labeling for ads. So you can always know what's in your ads, and if you want to, go through, find out more about those ads, and opt out from being tracked. This is proven to be very, very effective. For consumers that want to go a level farther, that's where Ghostery comes in. So Ghostery, as Perry was talking about, it's a free privacy extension that sits on your browser, and it'll show you every company that's tracking you on every page on the web. And it's wildly popular now. There's 16 million users of Ghostery, and inside of Ghostery is this 8 million member panel. And it's 40% US, 60% rest of the world, and it gives Evidon data on 26 million domains, 150 million URLs and growing. And that's what we use to map those, we call them the Evidon tracker maps. That's what we use to map all these data flows, both on individual websites and across the entire web. So if you go download Ghostery, it's free. I hope you opt into the panel. You don't have to. It will change the way you view the web. And this is the most effective way to block tracking, because this stops the actual code on the page from communicating back to the server, so you really can be about as invisible as you can.
You bought them about
3 years ago. Yeah, so we bought Ghostery 3 years ago. It was a single developer who had this thing, and it was a cult, sort of a cult following, about 700,000 users. It was available only for Firefox, and he couldn't figure out the business model. We initially bought it because for the ad choices program, they needed a panel to monitor if companies were actually playing by the rules. So as our creation of the program, we figured Ghostery could fit into it. And we have some very, very talented engineers, and we just let them go. And like, Ghostery is cool, because Ghostery is massively cool. Despite, like, privacy is cool in a different way, but you don't get any privacy cred at South by Southwest, right? However, Ghostery, massively cool South by Southwest. So I didn't go to South by Southwest. I'm too old. I have three collar shirts. We sent the much cooler kids who went on Airbnb and had a boys' condo and a girls' condo. And I don't want to think about what they did, but it came back with a huge win for us. Ghostery's cool. And we let our engineers just go. And in 3 years, Ghostery went from 700,000 users to 16 million users, and the panel went from about 30,000 to 8 million. And that's enabling our business to evolve and give companies a lot more tools. Your question back? The question was, if we're blocking what's being tracked, are we monitoring what's being blocked? Yes. We're able to see what scripts are actually blocked. I'm sorry, can you say again? No. So all the data that we questions are, what's like, is there a catch here? There's not. All the data we collect is anonymized and aggregated, and it can't be used to target back to anyone. It's web analytics data about how does your website perform, who's collecting, what companies are collecting data, but no one can see what the actual data are. That's really important to us because we don't want to have people think we have a privacy tool and we're using it to somehow target ads, which we're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed one of the things that showed up was Google Analytics, which seems like it's the same type of tracking, like as you mentioned, like anonymous usage type data, like what sites, what pages on my site are people visiting.
Yeah.
So, are you making a distinction between good and bad tracking?
It's a great point. So the question is, you're blocking things like Google Analytics, and that's just an analytics tool. So are you, as Evidon and Ghostery, making value judgments about who's good or bad? That's exactly the key point, which is what we think that Mozilla and Internet Explorer are doing. They're saying it's all bad. Let's switch it off. Our view is that it's up to you. That's why the blocking is not enabled by default. So when you install Ghostery, you then go in and say, all right, I like Google Analytics, I don't like Google Analytics. I want all the advertising scripts not to track me, but I am fine with all the analytics scripts tracking me. Because we firmly believe this should be in the hands of the consumer, because it's just way too subjective. And if in an academic environment, it's very paternalistic. How come Mozilla gets to decide? I mean, the Mozilla guys are smart guys, but how come they get to decide? It should be in your hands, because everyone in here has a different privacy profile. Okay, so to wrap up, because we have time for a few more questions?
Is there another question?
I have a question. Do you anticipate that somebody will design a program to get around this?
Yes.
And then, do you have solution to develop or to beat that?
Yeah, so the question is, how are you going to circumvent Ghostery? And the answer is, I'm actually not worried about circumventing Ghostery. Because the scripts, you can't hide the script. That's where we start at the script blocking level. Nothing's impossible, but it's really, really, really hard to build a scalable solution that circumvents scripts. The solution, which is the turning third-party cookies to off, is very easy to circumvent. We wrote a blog post yesterday calling out Mozilla for how easy this is to circumvent, and I got some, it was not a profanity-laced email from them. No, it actually was we should have a chat. Maybe you guys are onto something. So I think to wrap up, so tracking is essential. It's got to be managed, but it has to be managed effectively. It's like any tool. It's like a car, right? It's a privilege, not a right, and it's either this incredibly powerful transportation tool or it's a 3,000-pound weapon going down the highway. Use it responsibly. And part of using it responsibly is understanding the differences between the U.S. and Europe. Consumers have really good options for managing their privacy, but there are pros and cons that come with each, and there's a lot of room for debate and experimentation to keep harnessing the power, which is this theme that I keep hearing today, which is a very great show, and this is awesome. This keeps coming up. Hugely powerful, can't stop the innovation, and if you do it right, a lot of opportunity to grow. Any other questions?
Thanks, Scott.
One last thing. I have to run to the airport, but please email me if you have questions and if you're looking for a job. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And guys, we'll make all the decks available, so not to worry. Okay. All right. So I'm going to introduce Andrew. So again, a little minor subject here. So I met Andrew at an American Marketing Association function. Where we did a really cool presentation on kind of blowing out a whole branding campaign for joining the SEC last year. So I'm going to hand it over to Andrew. And Andrew, what's your title? You are the athletic director. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Yes, we are going to lighten things up a little bit. As Perry mentioned, we met at the St. Louis American Marketing Association conference, where I gave an overview of what we did from an awareness campaign standpoint about a year ago, actually, at this time, at Mizzou, really introducing ourselves as a new member of the Southeastern Conference. So really, this is kind of a switch up from what you've been hearing, but there are some elements that will resonate from what you've already heard into our campaign. But really, this is from the company or client perspective is where I'm going to be talking from. Clicker here. So you got to go back now about a year and a half, really, to when Mizzou officially announced that we were going to join the Southeastern Conference. A big move at the time, and certainly at that point in time, it was still towards the beginning of all the conference realignment. So really there was no blueprint in terms of what do we do as far as, okay, we just joined a new conference, what does that mean? Are people doing campaigns around it? How are they making people aware of that? A few schools had already done it, but really, by and large, most marketers and most people in the leadership with athletic departments really didn't know what are we supposed to do. So within a few weeks of joining, there was an email that went around, and some of you may be able to relate with this, that says, hey, we need to do a comprehensive marketing plan on joining the SEC. So that sounds pretty easy, right? So we looked at that and said, okay, that's very broad. Now, how can we attack this, and how can we get our message out, and what is our message, et cetera, et cetera. So we determined, and some of this goes back to what Nielsen was saying in terms of what you're trying to look at and establishing what you're trying to get out of a campaign. So what's the goal? We wanted to establish Mizzou or introduce Mizzou as a member of the Southeastern Conference in sort of twofold. One, we need to introduce it to the folks that already know who we are, already are familiar, so the folks in state, our alumni, et cetera. We don't really need to reintroduce ourselves to them, but we need to try to get them excited about our move, and then also gain awareness of Mizzou within the SEC footprint. This was very different from any other campaign that we would normally do. A lot of what we do marketing-wise is event-based, it's ticket sales-based, it's not broad picture. It's very focused. Budgets are tight in organizations like ours and organizations that you work for, et cetera. And so typically what we're trying to do is sell tickets and get people to come to events. So this was very different from anything that we typically do, and looking at markets outside of what we would normally look towards. So what's the goal? We really broke it down to those twofold. We wanted to excite and invite. We wanted to excite the people that know who we are, and we wanted to invite the people who don't to find out more about Mizzou, more about who we are and where we've been and where we're going. So we know what we want to do. Now what's the message? And so we tried to look at something clean and simple in both cases of finding something that would resonate with folks who know us, and then how do you make a statement to folks who don't. And in the athletic world and the competition, sports, et cetera, you walk a fine line. You don't want to be too robust in your message or braggadocious or hey, we're coming to get you and that kind of thing like that. I mean, it's a very, we are a marketing in athletics or sports. Your product is very volatile. I mean, it changes as those of you here, whether you're fans of Mizzou or others. I mean, it changes daily, it changes weekly. You may feel good after one game, you feel horrible after the next game. So what I'm saying is if you want to get into marketing, maybe choose a different product than a volatile product like athletics. No, it's very fun, but it can be a challenge. So again, we wanted to have a concise message, but we wanted it to not be too specific in terms of trying to say, hey, we're here and we're coming to get you, that kind of thing. So our Excite message that we went with was pretty simple. A new era begins. And some of you probably saw some of this messaging about a year ago. And I'm kind of going through this quickly, but I know time is of the essence. Our Invite message. So this was the message for the folks in the new regions of the country that perhaps don't know a whole lot about Mizzou. Was proud to be SEC. Very, very simple. Very, hey, we're proud to be a member. We're new. Check us out, that type of thing. So felt good about our messaging. All right. So now we start to look at target markets and how do we break up the excitement and invite. And I'll put up a slide at the end of the agencies that we worked with. We worked with a creative agency called Woodruff Schweitzer, and we worked with a media agency called True Media in Columbia to kind of help us through this campaign. But our target markets for our Excite campaign, again, that's the people that already know us. We're in-state, St. Louis, Kansas City, and Springfield. We didn't spend a whole lot of time at Columbia because they get inundated with our messaging all the time. Outside of the local markets, our Invite folks that we were going after, it was a little bit more complicated. So we tried to merge together a lot of data in terms of alumni centers, population centers, et cetera, in the Southeastern Conference territory. So again, a little bit of an inexact science for the markets that we picked. I'm sure there would have been others that said, oh no, you got to look here. So we kind of plugged in, between population, between alumni, et cetera, and knowing that we didn't have an unlimited budget and we couldn't just blanket the whole Southeast, we focused in on these markets that you see up here, crossing over multiple states. So then we have what we want to do, we have our message, we have our markets, now we're looking at delivery. So, and again, knowing that we don't have an unlimited budget and we can't hit every platform, we really were looking at, okay, what can drive the Mizzou message in the SEC, the bus of Mizzou in the SEC. And we focused in on television, billboards, and digital. And it's funny, again, when you are working this business, you have a lot of influencers. You have alumni, you have student athletes, you have coaches, etc. And there's the thing about the messaging here is you want to try to take input from them, but also try to do what's smart and what we feel like is the best use of our resources. And so television billboards, and I'm sure some of you who maybe work with or either with CMO or someone else in your organization who is maybe a little older, they'll say, oh, I want television, I want billboards, that kind of thing. So certainly that was part of this, but then digital also played a part. So I know this is a digital conference, so we'll focus a little more time on that, but you can kind of see where it fit on multiple platforms. So this is our TV spot.
They say you rise to the level of your competition. That playing great teams only makes you better. We're counting on it.
So that was the TV spot that we used. We purchased spots, again, knowing we didn't have an unlimited budget. We wanted to focus on a time frame or an event that would have a lot of eyes that might be from the Southeastern Conference or would have some affinity to the Southeastern Conference. So we purchased spots during the SEC basketball tournament, and you can just see some information there. About.
So Andrew,
yes.
How did you figure out the mix? I mean, was it just
well,
previous,
yeah, it was again. We had a budget in mind. We knew we wanted to do TV. We knew we wanted to do billboards, and we knew we wanted to do some digital. And so, really, with the TV money that we had available, it was okay. Where can we place this? And the SEC, the syndication nationwide, and getting into 75 markets. Over a 4-day period, really, it was a quick hitter with the TV advertising, but really it came down to how best to spend the money, which I think a lot of people can relate to that as well. So, and we repurposed that certainly on the digital front. You'll see an example of that as well. So that was the television aspect of it. Billboards, just real quick, 16 billboards across 10 different markets. You can kind of see how that was spread out again. That was, analyzing our budget. Obviously, having 2 billboards in Atlanta is a little more expensive than having it in some markets in Missouri. So we had to, balance that and look at, where we could get our best bang for our buck. And our partners at True Media helped us with that. You can see a few of them in random places. I like to point out the one that was right below a Cracker Barrel, which I'm sure got plenty of eyes on it. So then on the digital side, we did as much as we could. Well, actually, all of it was geo-targeted. So we looked at those markets in-state and out-of-state, and said we wanted to focus all of our digital to IP addresses in those markets specifically. So you'll see some examples of that we did with ESPN, Yahoo, Xbox Live, which as the Nielsen folks were showing, is becoming more of a player in that space, and then Facebook. So this is just an example of, again, kind of repurposing some of the branding and look, and I don't know if this will play or not. But anyway, this over here in this box, when you would go to the page, if you were obviously in one of those markets, you would see that play there, and it's not the whole commercial, but just it had some of the music and just some movement there. Similar here on Yahoo Sports down there. And again, this was running in rotation. All of this between, the TV again was targeted over a 4-day period for the SEC basketball tournament, but the digital and billboards went for over a 3-month period between March and May. This is pretty cool, just to see again, bringing up the Xbox Live. So I don't have an Xbox. I'm not sure exactly what you call this home screen per se within Xbox, but this gives you an idea of of how the advertising is presented. As we were working with our partners at True Media, we looked at demographics. Certainly, adult males 25 to 54 was a big part of that, big part of the TV, big part of the billboard placement. But we also wanted to go with a little younger demographic. And as we were looking at that, Xbox they kept bringing up, and of course a lot of us were like, well, what do you mean advertising Xbox? So this gives a little example of how this shows up, and again, this was a big part of our push. Let's see if this, I don't know if, can you click on this whole thing should.
Yeah, just a second.
Just to see how this interface goes, there's a little demo. You actually click on this whole graphic, it should. Oh, here we go. Here we go. You just watch this play out. So you just clicked on it. It opened up to another screen. There were 3 video options. Sorry, the spot will play again. You missed it the first time.
They say you rise to the level of your competition. That playing great teams only makes you better. We're counting on it.
So that would play, and then you could click on football highlights. And this was taken actually from so you can see it kind of render at the beginning. It was taken from an online stream. This won't go through. Okay, then it backs out, and then you can click on basketball. And so there's an interactive feature to that, aside from it just having that little button there on the home page. So obviously this is our, to reach a younger demographic through the Xbox. We wanted to make sure that all the videos, were high energy, that type of thing. So that's just an example of the Xbox interface there. And then on Facebook, not a lot to really highlight here other than that we did some traditional advertising through, purchased some ads through Facebook. And branded our page similar to some of that advertising, and so there was a cohesive look with everything that we did. And then just looking at the digital all around, everything we did, approximately 25.2 million impressions across the markets that we were attracting. And this was a very unique campaign, again, because it wasn't targeted at selling tickets or necessarily about driving revenue, which again is very odd. This is a very unique experience. It's kind of a generational, once-in-a-lifetime type move when you switch conferences. So it was more about just getting the message out there, getting the looks, and obviously having that the multiple platforms of television, billboard, and digital in these specific markets to kind of start to get in people's head about Mizzou and gain more awareness. You can look at some of the analysis here. You just see some of the click-through rates on ESPN, Xbox. We had a 0.77 click-through rate. Echo. You can see just on Facebook some of the likes just during that period. It accounted for almost half of the overall growth during that period. So just a few analytics, and certainly sitting in here today, and as some of you know, I mean, this campaign was a year ago. A lot of, as we look at this, and some of you, hopefully, are looking at this and saying, oh, they should have done this, or they could have done that, and I absolutely agree with you. So, what we really focused on were, some of these numbers and looking at all the impressions that we got and really presenting Mizzou and the SEC. And again, your company and your clients will likely not be in a situation like us where it's just, hey, we just want to get the message out. We just want people to see us. We just want to start gaining awareness. What we really equated it to is this is our opportunity to drop off a business card. This type of campaign was just hey, we're just dropping off our business card with the idea then, because again, at this point in time, we had not played any competition in the Southeastern Conference, we hadn't traveled anywhere down there, et cetera, that this is just our business card and we're going to be coming to town and we're going to be more active in those areas. So we felt good about that, but then obviously an offshoot of all the things we paid for, because this is the stuff that, when you work with agencies and creatives, I mean, we paid for this. This is we wanted to get these impressions. We also were pleasantly surprised with the coverage that we received on the campaign. These are just some of the different articles that were written about it. A small startup called the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did an article on it, which was good. Jacksonville Paper, Kansas City Star, and Mr. SEC, which is a pretty high-traffic blog covering the Southeastern Conference. So just some examples of how this campaign really had a life of its own beyond just what we paid for, which obviously is good, especially when you're looking at an awareness campaign. And then obviously on the social media front, beyond just the Facebook ads that we purchased, you got a lot of people talking, and certainly the hashtag MIZSEC was very popular for a while. There's as I look back on it, we probably didn't focus enough on the analytics of the social media side, other than just purchasing the Facebook ads. On the Twitter side and other things, we didn't probably measure that as well as we could have at the time. And again, I think some of that's just a product of when you're putting on this campaign, you're focusing on what you're paying for, and we probably should have had a little more global look at that. So again, certain things that you can take from this are also examples of things that we could have done better. But just some examples out there. And then moving forward, what we really look at, if we were going to do another type of campaign like this, I think we would want to be a little bit more targeted. As much as we felt like we were targeted there, I think that we can go a little deeper, and obviously on the analytics side, there's a lot more that you can do. But certainly now, we're out having competition. We've been holding different alumni events and other type rally sort of events in Southeastern Conference areas, and our coaches for all sports are out recruiting in these areas. So we've gone beyond just dropping off the business card with this campaign. And obviously our message will, again, from the creative side, will be key if you would want to do another campaign of this nature. So again, our partners on the creative side, Woodruff Schweitzer. Media strategy was True Media. You can check them out. They're both local in Columbia, but then they also have both of them have offices in Canada and a few other places around the state and elsewhere. So that is my summary. Hopefully I got through that as quick as I could. Thank you. Thank you.
I just thought that was just kind of a cool presentation, and it kind of lightened up the middle of the day as well. So it's not quite as heavy. Let's see, I think, okay, so we've got, guys, we have now, hi Kevin, we've got Kevin Murphy from Google. He is actually in Las Vegas. They have a sales conference going on right now, and he's agreed to pop in to do a quick Google Hangout with us and talk about a few things. Hey Kevin, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Perry. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, and thanks, Kevin.
Sure, no problem. Well, hello, everyone. Perry was nice enough to invite me to this event. I wish I could be there in person, but Google does have their annual sales conference this week, and so all of us Googlers have descended on Las Vegas this week. I guess I know, just going over some of the topics that you've been following and how digital is evolving and changing. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was programmatic buying and real-time bidding. I'm not sure if the topic was covered on a whole lot earlier in the day, but at Google, and particularly the department that I work in, is seeing tremendous growth there. And companies like Facebook are changing some of their sales strategy to focus on programmatic buying, which is completely different than what their strategy was going back to just taking user information and what users would fill out as the profile for when they were communicating with other users within Facebook. Google still makes their bread and butter from contextual advertising. Keyword advertising is still extremely successful. It's still the lion's share of revenue. But what we're finding I guess in today's marketplace is it really is an advertiser's world with the data that they have access to them. So whether they be automobile companies, CMG companies, they have access to users coming to their sites, showing interest in their products. They are working with other smaller point players like the BlueKais of the world that are building their own databases of profiles and people that are in market for particular products. And what they're doing is they're putting all this data together, and they're going out and buying advertising programmatically across these very large networks. And the one that Google uses is not only the AdWords and AdSense, which is on the publisher side, but it's also using the DoubleClick Advertising Exchange, which they purchased when they acquired DoubleClick almost 5 years ago. And what it does is it allows advertisers now, where in the past they may have had just a few users that came to their site. It goes back to the strategy of remarketing, if the abandoned shopping cart, more or less, or the analytics that you would follow on your site to see someone going through the purchase change and then they eventually drop off. How can you get that user back? What kind of advertising message would you put in front of that user if you could find them again? And these are tactics that have been used on the internet for the last 5 to 8 years. Now it's getting really sophisticated, where an advertiser doesn't necessarily have to do a direct buy from these publishers. They can link into like an ad exchange, or Facebook has their own exchange as well. And because these are such large or wide nets, they can find those users and they can target a particular ad to them, and they can bid very high CPMs, because these are it's not a shot in the dark, more or less. They already have some information on this user, and they can find them and they can give them a particular ad, and they can get a higher performance from that user, potentially converting to a sale. And I don't know, I can't see, but Perry, do you have those slides up that I shared?
Do you know what it's called?
Yes.
Which
Hold
is
on
the...
1 second, Kevin.
Okay, no problem. I mean, it's basically just showing the huge growth that's happening there, and the last couple of years is where we're seeing it, and this is really changing display advertising in the industry. And so what you're seeing now is you're seeing advertisers and some of the big bets like the automobile companies are putting more and more of their advertising dollars into this real-time bidding arena. And they're getting specific information on the users that are potentially in market and serving ads to them to get at the right time, the right place and the right time, which is what counts. And we're finding, at least from a Google perspective, this business is growing tremendously, which is a different strategy than the contextual targeting. I mean, people are still typing in keywords and still searching for products and information, and advertisers are still advertising on contextually. But we are seeing a significant growth in advertisers using this data to focus on particular users and pinpoint the ones that they know are more propensity to purchase or to buy.
Kevin, this is me. Sorry, I did not get your slides in time to because I was already over here.
That's fine.
So, okay.
That's fine. Basically, it's a hockey stick chart, more or less. So it's showing tremendous growth in that area, and that's ultimately what I wanted to kind of show. What we're seeing in our ad exchanges is where people or advertisers have been buying contextually, but they're also buying audience-based targeting, which is what I'm talking about from a programmatic standpoint. And this is representing close to 85 to 90% of the buying within the exchange. So it's a tremendous growth. I did share a case study, which I don't know if you can share that with the group there, Perry, but it was just in reference to the Washington Post, who's embraced this as well. And they basically, most of the publishers in the digital space have been using these exchanges or networks to fill their remnant inventory. And what they're finding is because the performance is so high for an advertiser when they buy programmatically, that they're willing to pay premium to be on a premium website and reach that user when what the advertiser covets the most when they're in market to buy something or have already seen the propensity to be to raise that user up, to cross-sell that user to another product. And what in the case study with the Washington Post is they're finding a success in that and using an ad exchange and selling their inventory programmatically is bringing in just as much revenue as, say, a direct sales from just a direct buy from an advertiser as well. So it's pretty significant. The case study talks about them testing this, and they were somewhat shocked on how well it performed.
Yeah, I will make that available to Kevin. Kevin, can I just ask you, when you say programmatically, can you just kind of make it clear to the audience, for those who don't know, I mean, we're kind of talking real-time sort of ad buys, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And how it differs from the traditional? I think RTB is another acronym you'll hear, or real-time bidding. And similar to I guess to AdWords and keywords is when advertisers are buying in AdWords, they're bidding for a particular keyword, and Google has its own proprietary algorithm to raise the bar on where that advertiser is going to show when a user is looking for a particular item and searching for a particular item. Same holds true, I guess, in the real-time bidding arena. So as these advertisers are looking for a particular user, they're placing bids in the system, and so and that's kind of the difference today than it was a few years ago, because all these publishers are linking into this to this large network. There's a higher propensity of that advertiser to find the particular user that they're trying to get, and so in this I guess real-time bidding world, it's the advertiser buying on particular users they already have information on. It could be cookie data, like the double-click cookie type of data, or any kind of user data that they have to pinpoint that user and serve a targeted ad to them. Does that give a little bit of clarity, or am I still? Is it still a little confusing? No, I think so. I think so. So guys, are there any questions you guys want to ask Kevin? Anybody? You guys are going to let Kevin go without asking the question? Okay. Yeah,
don't ask me about Google Glass, because I don't know anything. It's still very experimental.
Well, I did ask Kevin yesterday when we were doing a test with the Hangout. I don't know if you guys heard. It was in the news that Google's testing some sort of same-day delivery in California. Which is like, okay, what doesn't Google get into? You weren't aware of that either, right, Kevin, or whatever?
No, I wasn't. I was aware of Android now allowing the ability to smell or have the nose beta, so that you could actually smell things, which would turn into an April Fool's joke. But,
so can I just ask, what is kind of the purpose of your annual sales conference? What do you guys do? Is it like a rah sort of thing, or what are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rah. I mean, we'll probably talk about a little bit of past. We had a big year last year, and talk about some of the some new products that are in development. Probably some there's always something on the Android realm, and then obviously YouTube and Google Plus. So, social, as you know, is kind of key, and Google Plus is really the I guess the glue or the social spine that connects all the Google products together. So, I'm sure there's going to be some new developments in that. And as I talked to you in the past as well, it's about mobile. Mobile is changing the industry. It's hard to believe that the iPad is only 3 years old, but tablets are clearly here to stay. And the advertising industry has to change with it. So, Facebook has their challenges with this as well. As users access their content via their smartphones or their tablets, it's a different experience. We find with high-end devices, they're just looking for information, and there's a less propensity for someone to buy or to click. If they're on their tablet, it's completely different. Users are more likely to buy, and sometimes you find that user more valuable than one that's searching on their desktop. So we'll go into those type of things, and get pumped up for the year and meet other sales counterparts from. It's a global conference, so from different offices as well.
So can I ask how many people are there?
There's worldwide. There's 12,000 Google salespeople, so there's about 12,000 people that have descended onto Las Vegas.
And are you guys good gamblers?
Yeah. Barry, I got 3 kids at home, so having just being in a hotel room and having some quiet is something special. So. Maybe my counterparts might be having me down to the gambling floor maybe once or twice, but I'm just looking forward to a comfy bed.
Oh. So guys, any questions before we let you know? Oh, we do have a question. Yeah.
I had a question. Can you talk a little about some of the benefits of using Google X-ray if you're trying to track someone down?
Did you hear that, Kevin? The benefits of using Google X-ray to track somebody down?
Google X-ray? I'm not sure if that was another April Fool's product release. I'm not that familiar with Google X-ray, to be honest with you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kevin. Anybody else? Okay. Good. Cool. Kevin, this was great. I really appreciate you popping in and visiting with us. Totally
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. And have a good conference. Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Is Katie ready?
She's right
Oh,
there.
there's Katie.
Just a second.
So, guys, who I've got next is, hey, Katie, how you doing? So I've got Katie from Nickelodeon, and she can also tell us about a brand new job she's just accepted as the director of social strategy. I'll let Katie tell it later. But she's going to share with us some of what Nickelodeon's been doing and kind of the cool cutting edge stuff on Facebook. So Katie, I'm going to hand it over to you. So, okay?
Okay. So you guys can see me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I can't see you. So. I was on the live stream all day though, so. Okay, so if the first slide is up, this is, I'm going to do a...
Yeah, Thomas is going to pull it up now. That's the video you want, Katie?
Not yet, the video is the second slide,
okay,
so I'm going to do a
okay.
quick intro.
Okay.
So as Perry said, again, Perry, thanks so much for having me. I am currently the Senior Manager of Marketing Strategy at Nickelodeon, and I just accepted the Director of Digital Marketing position at Marriott, so I'm moving into a new vertical. But for today, I'm going to talk to you about the entertainment industry and TV, and I'm going to take you through a case study, which is the Kids' Choice Awards in 2012 and then in 2013. So before we start, just wanted to kind of back up and give you a little bit of information about our business. Most importantly, our goal is really to drive kids 6 to 11 to tune in. That is kind of most of the time, unless we're marketing an app, that's what we're trying to do. And as everyone has talked about today, translating social and digital data is difficult in any industry, but it's especially hard when it comes to TV. That has really been, Perry and I have talked about this multiple times, that's really the holy grail for us, and we continue to analyze it, and as the guy from Nielsen was saying, you know, we're not there yet. but that doesn't mean we're not working on it. And actually at Social Media Week this winter, one of the bloggers said something like, you know, we know this is true. I watch, therefore I tweet. But what we're not sure about is I tweet, therefore I watch. So the idea that somebody tweets something and then makes you turn the TV on is really what we're ultimately trying to get at. And then for us, the extra barrier is just really the laws that are around kids, which are in place for all the right reasons, but it makes it hard for us to analyze on the back end. So, with all that being said, the following, and I hope I'm not boring you, because I can't see you, the following study, case study demonstrates some of the work we're doing in social, and even though we don't have all the information, I do think that it's important to really state here that even though we can't connect everything, that doesn't mean we're not in the space and we're not being, you know, we're being creative in this space no matter what. We're entertaining kids in this space no matter what, and ultimately just really trying to connect all the analytics and getting closer and closer every year. So if we go to the next slide, this is what we did in, I'm trying to follow with you, this is what we did in digital and social for 2012, and just in case you don't know, Kids' Choice Award is really our Super Bowl, so it's the biggest event of the year. And we can play the video, and then I'll tell you a little bit about some of the learnings. On March 31st, 2012, Nickelodeon aired the biggest Kids' Choice Awards ever. Fans cast a record-breaking 223 million votes, up 11% from 2011's record of 200 million. To help get to that astounding number, Nickelodeon's marketing team developed a strong social media campaign with two main goals. First, extend voting to new relevant platforms to increase votes and social chatter. Second, leverage nominee talent to rally their superfans to vote. For the second year, we brought the ultimate voting experience to Facebook with a custom voting application. New this year was voting directly in-wall, allowing fans to vote without ever leaving their newsfeed. Also new was Fan Armies, a gamified experience that asked fans to pledge their allegiance to their favorite nominee in the race to prove which star had the most passionate supporters. By voting, tweeting, and recruiting friends to join in, fans earned points that contributed to their nominee's rank. Ultimately, Fan Army members voted 20 times more than the average KCA voter on Facebook. The key to extending our reach on Facebook was giving these tools directly to each of the nominees, allowing them to host our KCA apps on their own Facebook fan pages. An opportunity that superstars like Katy Perry, Big Time Rush, LMFAO, Victoria Justice, and Miranda Cosgrove all took advantage of. Ultimately, Facebook drove a staggering 18.3 million votes, and the additions of fan armies and in-wall voting helped double our votes per fan number. Increasing social chatter in the weeks leading up to the show was an important marketing goal, which is why, for the first time ever, we brought voting to Twitter. Through the use of unique hashtags, nominees like Justin Bieber, Big Time Rush, and the Black Eyed Peas rallied their fans to vote over 1.4 million times on Twitter. Making an early splash on Twitter was a catalyst for the night of the big show. Today's show Twitter conversation was through the roof. KCA was mentioned more than once per second that night, and social chatter increased 50 times compared to 2011. Over the course of the evening, we had a whopping 68 worldwide trending topics, occupying 5 to 8 trends at a time between the hours of 7 and 10 p.m. By bringing the KCA experience to the places where our fans and nominees live online, we made this year the most social Kids' Choice ever. So that was my voice. You can see how involved I was in the project. I actually did the voiceover. And obviously that's a marketing video for us, so it makes everything sound great. But if we go to the next slide, some of the important learnings from last year. Oh, am I still there?
Yes.
Okay. Some of the important learnings from last year. A great one that we learned in this case, which I know isn't true for all brands, and obviously I'm so lucky to be working on a project where you actually have a base of people who are listening. But motivation to participate was about proving ultimate fandom. So these kids and tweens did not need, you know, a huge prize to participate, which was a great learning for us. You know, we could say, vote on Twitter, and they heard us and they did that and they had fun with it. Another important learning was a small number of fan groups drove the majority of interactions. So just like any awards show, you know, we have 15 to 20 categories, and for instance, one of the categories was, you know, Tim Allen was nominated, and he didn't really drive any action on Facebook or Twitter, and that's fine. But you know, we didn't realize that before we started the program. And then ultimately, votes don't necessarily drive tune-in. We could not make a direct correlation last year between what was happening on Twitter and what we did on Facebook to the ratings. We still think what we did was really important to the awareness, but we couldn't make the direct connection. So let's move to 2013. Next slide. And we can actually go on to the goal slide, which is the slide after that. So our goal this year was to increase social hype and chatter leading into the Kids' Choice Awards to drive incremental awareness and tune-in. And ultimately, if we go to the next slide, the underlying strategy for all of that was based on some of the learnings from last year. So we wanted to use top celebrity fandom as the catalyst. We wanted to tap into the existing and organic behavior across many social platforms. So what we learned in 2012 about Twitter, we had never been on Twitter before, and we put voting on Twitter, and everybody knew already how to use a hashtag and how to vote with a hashtag, so that that tactic just took off on its own. And we also wanted to really get buy-in and participation from fan influencers. So you'll notice here, voting was not part of the strategy because of the learnings in 2012. And we added in kind of this idea of influencers, which we used two great technologies, two startups, one called Tracker, Trackr, and Topsy. Both of them helped us find influencers across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I really love Tracker because the interface is amazing, and ultimately it takes it down to the personal level across platforms, so you can actually view, you know, if I'm a huge Katy Perry fan, you kind of see where I am online, and you can understand my reach and relevance very quickly. So they were great.
Katie, but those tools are not free, right? So those are paid tools?
Paid tools, right. Okay. Topsy might have an actual free something or other, so. Topsy's just Twitter. So if we go to the next slide, the program overview. This was really the meat of how it all works. So fans of BTR, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, and One Direction. Notice we eliminated all of the others because these were the strongest celebrities for us in 2012. Compete in daily challenges across social media. To explain this a bit further, we released an image explaining the challenge each day and housed them in a Facebook album. So ultimately, this was very lo-fi, and we used the actions that were organic to each platform to create the challenges. So if we go to the next slide, I can explain that a little bit better. Sorry, I'm trying to move along with you. So when, you know, it was the 10 days leading in, ultimately I'd say a learning from that is we could have probably done it in just 5 days instead of 10. It was across all social platforms. And like I said, we started with influencers. So my favorite part of this program was each day at midnight we would announce who had won the challenge the night before to the influencers that we had recruited. And we wouldn't release anything about the next day's challenge or who had won until the following mid-morning or afternoon. So it was really the influencers who seeded each day's challenge into kind of the digital e-thrust. So, and then also we did, use our PR team to reach out to each celebrity to sort of explain what the program was and ask them to participate on whatever level they felt comfortable with. And actually, if we move to the next slide, there's an example of an actual challenge. So this was day 3, and you can see BTR at the bottom there is winning. They won the two days before that. And it's spell out your Fan Army nominee's name with everyday objects and posted on Twitter and Instagram. So if you don't kind of work in the kids space, you might not realize that the way that kids use Instagram is in all sorts of quirky ways. They make collages. It's sort of like the scrapbooking of the 21st century in some cases, but they love to do creative stuff and take pictures of it. So we were really tapping into that phenomenon there and asking them to spell their nominee's name. And then this was also a bonus challenge. This was another great part of the program. Basically, if all of these fans tweeted at the celebrity and got the celebrity to participate, they got an extra point for the day. If we go to the next slide, you can see that one of the members of BTR participated. There's Kendall in the middle with his fruit spelling of BTR. And all of the ones on the side are nominee or fans participating examples. And up at the top there we have some data, over 600,000 submissions in 24 hours, leveling out to 7 tweet submissions per second, which was pretty great. We trended several times on that day with all of the different hashtags. And the next example, just to show you guys how it reached across social media platforms. This one was on Facebook, and it was find the orange carpet photo of your Fan Army nominee in the Kids' Choice Awards photo album and share it. So we actually had a like it day where you liked a photo, and this was the example of the share it day. And on the next page, we have some of the results. So the BTR pick earned over 100,000 shares. For reference, a typical KCA post will get about 500 interactions. And then if we go to the next slide, I can walk you through some of the results verbally. So Big Time Rush took home the title of #1 Fan Army. That was great for Nickelodeon. We did not rig it, and Nickelodeon, Big Time Rush is a Nickelodeon band. They have a TV show. They're like the monkeys of the 21st century. And spanning across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr, and Get Glue, Fan Armies produced an average of 2 social actions per second over 10 days. So leading into KCAs, we had a consistent chatter across all of these social networks, and ultimately, even though voting wasn't a goal, just to kind of speak about how I forget his name, but earlier, kind of how things are constantly changing, and you have to kind of continue to be learning about everything and staying up to date. You know, in 2011 or 2012, we had 1.4 million votes on Twitter, and we thought that was amazing. And this year, we had, over 30 million votes on Twitter. And if you think about it, voting on Twitter is very different than voting on any other platform, because when you vote on other platforms, you vote through all the categories. When you vote on Twitter, you're just voting for one category. So that was an amazing number for us, incredible growth. And just to prove that, the 2 programs voting, even though we did not have voting involved in this program, once we started Fan Armies, voting increased from 600,000 votes per day to over 2 million votes per day. So kids and tweens were really combining everything. They were voting, they were participating in this program, and really getting ready for Kids' Choice Awards, which was wonderful for us. And ultimately, I'm sure you're asking, how did this impact TuneIn? We're still doing a ton of evaluation. We're looking at the ratings and mapping tweets against those ratings. But really, the analysis that we're trying to do right now and the connection we're trying to make is at the top of the hour when the show started, was all of this, the lead-in, all of this 10 days of activity ultimately driving people to that 8 o'clock time slot. And we don't have a perfect answer yet, but we're getting closer to being able to analyze for sure. And like I said at the beginning, I think we're going to continue to do programs like this and continue to work on the analytics. Ultimately, we're not going to not do stuff like this simply because I think as marketers, it's a little bit of the art and the science combined. We don't have all the science, but our intuition tells us that it's the right place to be.
If I could just correct something, Katie, you're not going to be doing anything, right? Because you're going to be at Marriott, right?
What?
I said you're not going to be doing anything because you're going to be at Marriott.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right.
Well, at Marriott, there's lots of data.
So anyway, a gentleman came over and asked a question, which I think you probably get asked from time to time. How do you deal with the fact that the majority of your Facebook fans are probably underage? And is that just something don't ask, don't tell? I mean, or talk about it? I mean, what is the philosophy there?
Sure. So when we, one of the reasons that this whole program doesn't have a kind of on-air tune-in is because ultimately we are sort of reaching outside of that core demo and saying, where can we kind of stretch? And ultimately, when you sign up for Facebook, you have to say that you're 13. We know that there's a lot of data out there that says that kids are underage on Facebook. But we don't ultimately have control of that situation. Our real goal is to stretch just outside the boundary of our regular demo and really capture, the last of your tween years before you move on to Teen Nick or MTV. So most of the programs are about stretching the demo a little bit beyond. For Tumblr, you don't actually have to say your age when you sign up. So that's a little bit of a different story for us.
So, does that answer, whoever asked the question, I don't know where the gentleman went, but I'm assuming that answered the question. Guys, any other questions? Did that answer the question? Yeah.
Not totally,
Okay.
because, I mean, Nickelodeon is taking on some liability.
Here, let me give you the mic. Yep.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite answer the question because Nickelodeon is inherently taking on some liability of advertising directly to underage participants and encouraging them to sign up and falsifying their data. So
we're not encouraging kids 6 to 11 to sign up because we're not advertising these programs off of social media. So if you're on social media, you know about the program that we're doing there, but we're not. There is nothing on Nick.com or any of our advertising 6 to 11 that drives kids to social media.
Okay.
That is a huge legal problem.
Right.
So anything that we do on social is contained.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One more question.
How about telling us a little bit about the art and science of funding such an elaborate program?
Sure. One of the reasons this was so lo-fi was because ultimately we didn't have a lot of budget for it. We are doing something that's outside of our core demo, and for this project, the budget really came from, we manually tracked everything, so we do have Topsy and Tracker, and we did have to pay for those services, but for everything else we were manually tracking, and ultimately the only other cost involved was creating the images.
Any other questions, guys? Derek, what's one? Oh. Okay, so guys, everybody good? So Katie, this was phenomenal. Really, really appreciate it. Good luck on the new job. And we'll stay in touch, and I'll have you guest speak for Marriott. That's right. Okay? All right. Okay, good. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, guys, so who we've got next is Marshall Sponder, who's the the social media analytics guru, and we do have one copy of his book as well, which we will randomly pull out of the tweet stream somewhere. Rhonda is going to do that. So, Marshall, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you have 30 seconds per slide, Marshall.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it's really good. Okay. I don't know if you want to publish. Let's see. Thomas, I got it. Okay.
I'd like to
I like to be able to.
And again, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Marshall. He's got a big following out there on Twitter, and
Yeah, I
a
guess
very
so.
artsy guy as well. Very artsy.
Well, thanks. Anyway, I want to say that I do a lot of my decks. I find myself not wanting to do the deck if I can't get involved with the first slide. So I spent some time in London last week, prepared a couple of decks for that. Must have spent about 6 hours on it, and I adapted that one for this one. So I put the university right here, in there. A little bit of art. So anyway, let me see. How do I get this? Let's see. Does it go this way or this way? This working? Am I supposed to do it this way?
Try it again. Right. Yeah, try to hit the right button. No.
Where am I pointing it?
Yeah, sometimes they work.
If not, I'll just tell you to move it.
Sure. Yeah, it's a PDF. That's right. Wait.
Oh,
try
it's a
it- try it
PDF,
again.
right? It's a PDF.
Try it again.
All right. All right. So, okay. Well, anyway, just a little bit about me. The things that I've done. I won't go into them. The feedback I got from London is I don't need to go into this. It's pretty self-explanatory. These are some of the companies that I've done work for to do the analytics on, and in a couple of different areas. And so the value of what I want to talk about today is the insights I get out of this information. And also, these kind of maps are very popular here today. So I think you've seen, one thing to know is if you're on the left, you're a marketer, and if you're on the right, you're a consumer. So most of us are trying to do things to get other people to see what we're doing. So we're kind of using the platforms on the left, and I'm really a specialist kind of on like the social intelligence, social scoring, influence, and analytics. Those are the areas here I probably know everybody, and I probably have tried the majority of tools, including the ones that I've mentioned here, including NetBase. In fact, I taught a course in NetBase at University of California, Irvine. We did it in the summer, and we started this last semester, but we didn't end up going forward with it. That's another story. But at any rate, what I really wanted to talk to you about today is the value of getting information, and I think a lot of people have touched on that. I hope you can hear me well. Taking all this data and turning it into intelligence, and I also use the word ultraviolet data, which I coined, which is similar to dark social or dark data that other people have been talking about in online last year. Ultraviolet data is data you could capture, but you're not capturing it. It's likened to bugs that can see ultraviolet light, like bees and wasps, but humans can't. It's still there. Taking this information that's kind of out there and turning it into intelligence and useful information. And even so, I have a story to tell about that, because on the plane back from England, I talked to one of the people who was involved in what they call complex systems. It's a type of modeling. And one of the things that we ended up talking about, it's like lectures all over the world, is that the value of data is going down to zero, but the value of extracted intelligence is going up. It's almost like the two of them. If I would have updated the deck, I would have put that slide. And I guess there's reasons for that. But one of the things I did this time for this deck for today is put in a little bit more mobile. I work with a number of companies. One of them is Venue Labs, and they do a lot of work with geolocal tracking, storefront analytics. I actually have an instance that my girlfriend and I are working on in Rhode Island, the Tees restaurant chain, and just seeing all the data from Instagram and Pinterest and Foursquare, Facebook, all rolling up based on location gives you context that's often missing in a lot of the social data. So just having a location and an activity often supplies you with what we would call two of the height and width, sort of that you need sometimes to figure out where things are. And so I like that. So this is just an example of how some of this data is becoming aggregated. And also, this is a slide that I synthesized from information at GigaOm's Structured Data Conference a couple of weeks ago, which I attended. And for the last year and a half, I've been trying to think about this space of big data and making sense out of it. And what I found is it was hard to put my hands around, as it is for most people, to put your hands around big data. But what I found, what this really was, is that in the 1950s and 60s, when we had IBM PCs, IBM mainframes and PCs, and then work groups, and then the personal computer, you know, pretty much everything up to about 1993 was structured data, meaning that it was companies trying to automate their processes, and they were using computers and systems to do that. Once we started getting, after 1993, 94, into 2000, we started getting more people creating content. You know, at first that content was structured in VisiCalc and later Excel and you know, basic documents. But then, around the time of my first book, Social Media Analytics, came out recently, but it covers 2004 and on. A lot more people started creating data in these social platforms, and that data and what preceded it is considered unstructured, meaning that there's no clear value to it. It's not clear what you get out of it. Now there's 100 billion times more of it, and there's more people going online all the time, and because of all that extra stuff, there's now like gigantic reams of data, and now there's super powerful databases to contain all that data, and then there's real-time analytics engines to go search through it. But the biggest question that a lot of companies and people here getting into the space is whether it's worth going into that in the first place, whether there's any value, whether there's any question you need to answer. And that's something that a lot of businesses need to think for themselves, whether there's value in it. But that's what's happened. And the Google Glasses will make it worse. Will make it much worse because they're going to just collecting more data. And it's just going to mushroom out. So yes, there's cloud databases and smart analytical platforms, but there's very few that interface with a typical analyst today. So most people who will work with this data today are data scientists, and they're not necessarily the ones that are going to be posing the questions yet to what you need. The only big data applications for the average consumer are ones that are created just for that, like for driving, you know, where data is, let's say, aggregated together and you find out the best route, or you know, or Facebook's doing the Facebook social graph. So anyway, and this is an example of what that looks like. This is a chart from IDC. It's about 7 or 8 years old, but it shows, I've adapted it to show how the data has turned from structured to unstructured. And the unstructured data, no one really knows how to look at. They don't know what to key in for. They don't know what the patterns to look for. There are different approaches to how to get the value, clustering it, letting it evolve, looking at the ocean, but no one really has a clear idea of exactly what the value, what they're putting their hands into when they go into big data. But we do know that there is value in it. And it's certainly, a lot of companies are finding correlations, like if I fix my roof in a mall state, those people who fix their roofs will have less car accidents, so I'll lower their rates. And I think that's where it's kind of been the last year or so. But one of the things I find as an analyst is that every form of data, of channel of communication is turning out to have its own analytics, its own type of analytics. And that's kind of creating a fragmentation for companies deciding on what to invest in that I often counsel. I mean, if you just look at this, there's just a new analytics for everything, because it doesn't seem like there's any analytics that will do everything. And certainly in the mobile space, that's the case. And then I'm also thinking about platform investment. And basically, if you don't need anything, if you're just experimenting, you won't want to spend any money. A lot of people have started with marketing not wanting to spend any money because they're not sure what they want to get out of the data, and they don't have much money, and they just want to communicate message. But as a business, if you're a small business, if you're a bodega shop or you're a stationery store, you won't want to spend any money on any of this stuff. But if you're a business, as you move across this axis here of investment size and complexity, you'll find that you'll need customized solutions for your information. And the time spent to clean the data for that and to prepare it so it's useful will go up, and that will require you to spend money of $5,000 to $25,000 a month for some companies. If you're a bank and you need the data just a certain way, that's going to cost money. And so the cost is in extracting information from the data. The data is free. and everybody's fishing in a lot of cases from the same place with social. But the insight to get value from the data costs money and time, and people have to decide whether that is valuable enough for them to want to invest in. For some people it is, and for some businesses it's very worthwhile. What helps is to have a good business use case defined. What do you want to get out of this data? And I just found this on the web. It just happened to be about end-to-end systems, which I was talking about in London last week. But you know, poor is like we need to sell end-to-end solutions, and good was what prevented me from doing it. You know, so there got to be a noun and a verb in there that wasn't there before. That helped you then decide how you were going to look at the data when you did extract. And then this is a kind of like an explosion. I teach at Rutgers, and one of the things that I've, you know, communicated to my students is that this change we're undergoing is like an explosion. It's like a sun that's just exploding out. And it's exploding out so fast that you can't contain it. No one can contain it. No one could possibly get their hands around all of this. I mean, the closer things are the things we know about, like CRM, social, online search, word of mouth. But the things that are going outside, proximity-based, collaborative, digital spin, virtual reality, these things are going out very quickly. And so the question is, how do we work with all this? And how do we even understand it? So what I did is try to immerse my students in all of it while giving them structured exercises, sort of a Karate Kid approach at the same time of throwing paint on the wall. Let me see if this works. Okay, it's a 1-on-1-8-3. Hint, what you want to invest your time in? Focusing on mobile geolocation helps. If you want to get context out of social data, you'll probably want to get the location or the activity that people are doing. Also, and this comes from Venue Labs, I mean, you probably want to look at data from different angles at one time. You ever want to see the same data from 3 different points. So this is like a strategic, regional, tactical. Also, what to avoid. Avoid this. This is a mashup. And these platforms don't really talk too well to each other. But sometimes people need to play together. This is a lot of work. So that's something a lot of people in business often have to create stuff like this, you know, and it's, you've got all these players there. They don't really talk to each other very well, so it takes a lot of work to get them to talk together and figure out anything. One of the things I get from my friends at Symphonic, that just now got purchased by, famous accounting firm. Don't duplicate. If you can avoid, don't duplicate platforms, because it's just a lot of extra work. Like, in other words, Sysomos, Radian 6, Nielsen, they do pretty much, and I guess our Nielsen friend could argue a little bit about that. They do much the same thing. Best to figure out one. If you've got 3 of them, then you just got 3 times the work. Same thing here, and same things with the NLP systems. If you've got Clarovich SAS, I mean, you might have NetBase in there too, a little bit, doing a little bit. You might find that you've got a bunch of systems that are essentially doing the same thing. You don't want that, because that just makes more work. And work is money, and money is time, and you want to be effective. Let's see, okay. Well, there's another one that came from London. This deck basically says you want to see in the continuum. So you want to place yourself somewhere on this. Where do I need? What do I need? Maybe you could figure out what you need that way. And then this is the nightmare. This is what a lot of people end up with. They just end up with all of this and trying to track all of this. And it is a lot of work. And there is complexity. And if you're on Amazon or you're a big website, you're a retailer, you will end up with something like this, with a lot of tagging and analytics and behavioral targeting and site optimization. And you'll have to hire vendors to help you figure it out. And it will be worth it. Yeah, several. And then where to begin? Okay, well, we know you need to know your use case, so figure out what do you want to do and how many of these you're doing, and which data you want to combine. And then you want to find frameworks that will help you choose which platforms you want to use. Like, this is one a lady put together in Austria called Samara, I can't pronounce it, but it's something that kind of tells you basically the attributes, of these platforms, so you might be able to choose it. And then this is another one that comes from Katie Payne and Associates. Talks about the value, the time required to take data that you read about and turn it into a clipping, an intelligence. It could be for an average company, it could be one person's job all day to do that. Just the hour, just the time to figure out what's relevant, read it, summarize it, categorize it, convert it. This could be someone's full-time job if you have enough of it. You know, if you only have a couple things coming out a month, no. But if you've got like 3 or 4 stories or 5 or 10 stories a day, yeah, could be. And then it's finding the right perfect metric. Those are hard because I find most metrics are really things that are percentages, and they need to be usually created for that company. So usually they're composites of a couple of different things. I do that for my students at Rutgers as well, get them to do a flow chart. One of the things that came out of a recent event I went to is and Nestle and some of the other companies can speak to this, is that on the maturity level, the more mature companies are finding that as they want to engage and create content, they actually need combinations of certain skills, and that's where it's interesting in education that what we often are forgetting is we have a graphic design and Photoshop person, typography, and then we have a writer, creative, but in a different way. It seems as if the ideal social media person would be a combination of both, but they're usually not. And you know, most of the time, one is doing one or the other. Usually in the team there's an analyst and a programmer as well, and a strategist in the middle. That would be the ideal for a lot of companies. But it seems as if this is where we have some impact. We should be encouraging people to combine those skills and getting them to be more creative. Get the graphic designers to write more, get the writers to get more into Photoshop. I think this is something we could do here and what we should do. Also, let's be aware of platforms trying to upsell themselves as business solutions. There's no platform that's a business solution. A business solution is created by a business. A platform is just a platform to create some effect. Marketing Cloud and all the others, the Oracle ones and the Adobe ones, they're not solutions. They're just a platform to create meaning and create workflow. So let's be clear. These things are not solutions. They are simply means or tools. And then to have your metrics. You know, your metrics, this comes from an infographic, but basically you need to have those metrics in place. But you may need to spend some time experimenting until you get the ones that really work for your organization. The other thing here is get context. Okay, this comes from Venue Labs again, and it has to do with the idea that a lot of the content in social media isn't really about a particular place. I mean, it has that information, but you're not capturing it in the tweet. So a lot of cases, you get this. Let's see, where did I go through it here? Where is it? Okay, you're at Starbucks. They mess up a lot here. And I wasn't in a rush, nor the coffee addict. I would go somewhere else, but it doesn't say Starbucks coffee, so you don't know it's about Starbucks. So really, basically, it's a brand term, but it doesn't, you wouldn't know unless you look at the check-in data, but the check-in data doesn't come in Arabian 6. It doesn't come in these other platforms. They just follow the tweet. So you're missing the contextual data that tells you what this means in a lot of cases. And also, this is another one from Venue Labs. It talks about the likelihood of people to say something good or bad. If it's about food or drink, they're twice as more likely to say something good than bad. But if the service is bad, they're way more likely to say something about it than it's good. You know, so this is like using big data. They've come up with this, so on. And then finally, this integration here with the Marketing Cloud. This is an integration with Venue Labs and the Marketing Cloud that I think is not formally announced, but I think they do have it, just to show that you can match up these data. It's possible to do it. And then, you know, in some cases when people do this kind of stuff, they get better results. You know, it takes time, but in this case, 90 days. We're looking at a Pete's Restaurant myself, and I often see several improvements that platforms could make as I work with them. I can't say that I'm ever really 100% happy with any platform, because I feel that platforms are really created for specific customers and use cases, and then often sell to everybody else. So I think in some cases, the next generation of platforms, which will be more customized, they're still not here yet, but what we have to use right today, I mean, I think it's more the creative use of them. So this is something I've done. I wanted to talk a little bit about. I've been fascinated with Facebook graph search. And I've introduced my students at Rutgers, most of them that don't have it. One of the things I've done in this here is show that the different audiences for musicians in my class, those that are musicians, are different in their likes. In other words, a pianist, percussionist, a singer, violinist have different likes. I can't tell you how many people are in each inmates who go to School of the Arts, but I can tell you that the pianists seem to like the Beatles and John Mayer. And so my girlfriend and I were looking at that and saying, well, that must mean that they like edginess, but they're play it safe, you know. Because anyone who likes John Mayer knows he's not all that out there, neither the Beatles. On the other hand, the cellists like Panera Bread, some reason, and Times Square. So that tells me they're more social than the others. And percussionists like Rutgers football team, which really didn't understand right away until I realized that there's a marching band with football teams, and also the fact that percussionists tend to be very physical, need a physical component. And in fact, some people who have been successful with social media and percussionists have, you know, like the guy Charles Delaney in Brooklyn, who I have in my course in a video, he plays a building in Brooklyn, you know, like he bangs up the stairs and he goes up the top. They're also very much into nonprofits. The singers like NPR and the Colbert Report. So I just found that these things are kind of interesting. I always wanted to talk more about them. I think we're just at the beginning of this. And then there's this study that came out like a couple weeks ago. The most famous statement is that the most intelligent people like curly fries. But they also like the Colbert Report. And that's a Colbert had a whole long thing about nation, you know, we all love, you know, see, you know, you love the Colbert Report, we're the most smart ones. But actually, I've been playing with this a lot, and I know Facebook's been kind of limiting how much you can pull out, but I've been, you know, really finding that this is fascinating. This was done with 56,000 accounts last summer, and the results were published by Cambridge and Microsoft, I think, last month. Still, I see it as a Rosetta Stone, actually, at least the first Rosetta Stone. Here's the level of confidence they say they can predict based on the number of likes. And each person had like about 400 likes. They also gave them psychological testing. So they could tell you whether you were white or black by 95%, you know, gay 88%, lesbian. You know, they were able to do, this is what they said. You know, I won't tell you that it's accurate or not. This is what they said. They even went after things like parents together at 21. Like, how the hell would you figure that out? But they did. Anyway, and then finally I wanted to finish up with, I took that approach with one of my students. Her husband is this guy called New Jersey Poet. And, you know, he's got an interesting site. So I tried to use that approach. I looked at the top 500 pages that came up for people who liked his page, and I found that according to that Cambridge study, that his audience is very intelligent, because in the top 150 pages they had The Godfather, Comedy Central, and The Daily Show, which were three of the top things that would say that they were intelligent people would like those things. They also had Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and For Better or Worse. So, you know, that kind of told me that his audience is, you know, intelligent and well-read. You know, and then finally, my whole point here really is to, you know, basically say that we're in an exploratory stage still. So the people who want to jump in to learn about this stuff will ultimately be ahead of the curve. You know, so even if you're not producing, when I used to work at IBM, we did Second Life a lot, and I did the analytics on Second Life. And I know IBM spent millions of dollars on Second Life, and, you know, didn't end up producing much, but they always saw themselves as people that were going to be in there ahead of time. They didn't want to wait until everyone else was doing it, you know, because then it's too late, because then everybody's there already. So, you know, so finally I wanted to just summarize that there's this explosion happening, but look at the patterns you can create. And, you know, that's pretty much it. You know, you need to know what your use cases are. You need to determine how much time you're willing to put into it, and develop those goals and strategy and tactics and key performance indicators that you need. And that's it. I'll take any questions now.
Thanks, Marshall. Great. Also, given that graphic, did you have these selected for the book? Let's questions. Are you going to be around for a little bit, Marshall, as well? Okay. Yeah, sign up for whoever, but after the event.
This free
Brianna 5 and Smith or Smith 5. Come here.
Yeah, you won the book.
Well, there's also something else. Do you want to tell the audience what it is?
Everybody knows that you lost your Twitter. Oh, yeah.
She tweeted so much she lost her Twitter privileges.
Thank you for tweeting for me.
That's great. Thank you. So you can catch Marshall later. He'll sign that for you. Okay, cool. Good. So what we're going to do is David, because we're running a little late, and David from Yahoo has to catch a flight like really quick, so we're going to pull him up, and then we'll have Rachel come in through a Hangout. So Thomas, are you okay pulling up Yahoo? You got it? Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks, David.
Apologies for the rush here. Thank you. It's great to be here, and it's great to learn from all of our other presenters. I feel humbled to be up here, but it's been great. I was actually thinking on the way the last time I was in St. Louis, and it's been a while, but on the plane ride here, I was reading through my baseball preview from Sports Illustrated, and I was thinking to myself, how's the St. Louis team look this year? So I was reading through, they're predicting number 2 in the NL Central, which is great. Our Yahoo Sports bloggers actually say the same. But it got me thinking, I actually don't know a lot about the team. So being the research guy that I am, I actually went back to the hotel room and thought to myself, I want to learn a little bit more about the team and the fans. And I found...
Is this what you did after we went to Blueberry Hill?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
actually.
You even have 2
Which
beers.
is crazy. So what better way to learn than through data? So data was a theme that we heard quite a bit about all day today. So I turned to Yahoo search data to learn a little bit about the team, and I wanted to share some of my findings. So looking at search volume, when we look at the starting lineup, we could take a pretty good guess at who the most popular players are. So this is consumer data. This is consumers telling us through search who some of the most top-of-mind players are. It's Beltran, it's Molina, it's David Freese. What else did we learn? Excuse me. What else did we learn about our different players? And I promise this does relate to a little bit about Yahoo and a little bit about our presentation and some of the themes today. Who's searching for these different players? So 4 players had over 10% females searching for them, which made them stand out, so that was interesting. What else did we learn? Alan Craig, searchers for Alan are partial to Yahoo Finance, so those searchers over-index for different types of content. Searchers for Pete, who's a rookie this year, pretty low search volume, but his searchers are 3 times as likely to appreciate music versus Matt Carpenter, our second baseman. Matt, actually, his searchers are partial to travel in comparison to Pete. What else did we learn? Matt Holliday, his searchers are partial to Yahoo Games, different type of content. John Jay, this was surprising. Many of his searchers actually came from the New York DMA. One thing that was common for all of them was that over 90% of searchers for each one of these players did not come from the St. Louis area. So a lot of interesting facts, a lot of learnings about the team. I learned a lot. I learned who the starting lineup was.
Again, this isn't something that just you can get, right, David? So, I mean, anybody can get at this data?
No. Indirectly. So indirectly. I think for many of our advertisers, it's a byproduct of their ad campaigns. So a lot of this types of data becomes available.
Because, I mean, Google shares their search data, but again, they don't let you break it down by gender or things along those lines.
Yep. We did for a while, and I think we're thinking about a refresh of what that looks like and so forth. But for advertiser, yes. But in relation to some of the themes that we saw today, what did we generally learn from the data? And it's a pretty silly example that we came up with, but fans of a brand or of content are not homogenous. They're very different. So even though these are all fans of some particular part of the St. Louis Cardinals, they're all very different. They're all unique in some way. And we see that theme throughout a lot of Yahoo's evolution, Yahoo's products and services, as well as the ways that our advertisers excuse me, are targeting. Fans are not defined by simple age, gender, or interest categories. So one of the things that we saw today was this theme about big data and a lot of different types of data pervading ad targeting, pervading content choices, and so forth. We see that here. And I did use some pretty simple data to make the example, age, gender, interest. But we're seeing a lot more defining people. And I think Marshall touched on that a little bit. Thirdly, real-time data can be a powerful way to target content and ad experiences. So we're seeing that also shape a lot of what Yahoo is doing today, a lot of our content choices, a lot of the experiences that we're putting on our site, and so forth. So just taking a look at how that manifests itself. And this is just a view of the Yahoo homepage across 3 different screens. So I'll touch a little bit on mobile as well. It's a trend we see a lot. We saw a lot of today, but how does that manifest itself on Yahoo? Every day we see millions of iterations of the same page. Every 5 minutes, 45,000 different versions of this page are served on the web. So that's personalization. It's based on what you click, who you are, what you're telling Yahoo about yourself, what people like you might like. So it's those types of data-driven decisions that are driving a lot of the content choices and a lot of the content streams across the web. So another theme I wanted to touch on a little bit was mobile. So I have 2 mobile examples up here. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But just another example of relevancy and targeting a personal experience. This is some work that we did through an eye tracking company. Sorry, I'm going to get some water here. This is terrible at this. This is some work that we did through a biometric and eye tracking company. So they're looking at personalized experiences, different types of content, different ads matched to different pages. So through a sample of 60, we're looking at things like sensory eye tracking, conscious decisions such as survey responses and so forth, biometric responses such as biometric responses and so forth. What we found was that context, when serving an ad in relevant context, increases fixation. So that's your potential ad recall. That's the amount of time you spend fixating on the ad. We also see that context increases dilation by 7%. So that's your cognitive processing. That's some of the deeper responses, some of the long-term or latent ad effects. We also see that when display ads are relevant, when they're targeted based on your interests, based on your needs, people spend more time fixating on the ads. So 25% more time fixating. So that's your potential to absorb. We see increased pupil dilation. So this is our eye tracking work. We show that when display ads are relevant, we see that people are more likely to focus or notice relevant ads. And then a combination of the two, personal plus contextual relevance, together are really a multiplier effect. So when we're creating these personalized experiences through data, we're seeing advertisers benefit.
So are you saying, David, that you'll have a camera on me and you'll see if my pupil dilates and you'll know it's either relevant or not relevant?
No.
I know you're not very playing devil's advocate.
We actually have done a lot of work to build on this. Hundreds of these studies are done, not just through Yahoo, but through a variety of web publishers. But there are a lot of learnings in different journals and so forth. And one product or byproduct of it is the predictive model. So when you learn from some of these eye tracking exercises, when you learn about how people respond, you can put those together as a number of factors and actually predict what the eye tracking might look like based on a number of factors on the page. So short of putting a camera in front of you, we might put a predictive model based on a number of cues on the page against your experience and predict how you might react. So a little bit about mobile. We touched on that in a number of different presentations. I love this slide. I think it's pretty powerful. It paints a pretty powerful picture about why mobile is important. It really shows that it's a pivotal time. So this is data from the IDC looking at mobile devices including anything from a smartphone to a tablet and so forth. And we see that the number of internet users is surpassing the number of PC internet users just in the next 2 years. So for a company like Yahoo or a number of different web publishers, this is a cue for us to say, how do we create an experience that looks like this? How do we create an experience that recognizes that more and more people are accessing our content through mobile devices, as well as for advertisers. So for advertisers, it's recognizing that many of our consumers are going to see ads on more than one device when you reach that type of critical mass. But with that, one thing I like to remind our advertisers is that PC is not going away. I mean, it's a different experience, and although we see that the number of internet users via mobile devices will soon surpass that of the PC web, we still see that time spent relatively steady through the next 5 years for PC. So this is a cue for us to say, these are different experiences. These are different ways that we should be thinking about how we serve content, how we create ad experiences, and how we make them work together. Because it's additive. It's not cannibalistic. Some of the other things that we learn about our consumers and how media consumption is changing comes from work that we've done on looking at TV experiences. So Yahoo has made a number of acquisitions and content developments in the last few years. Acquisition of IntoNow, creating an app experience through the television set called Connected TV. But it's really based on some of the trends that we see and that you guys are probably experiencing now. Just looking around the room, many people are multitasking with this presentation. And we see that through our PC experiences, our mobile devices, and our tablets, and so forth. So 56% of consumers engaging on a daily basis with their PC and their TV, 50% with their mobile devices, and 39% of tablet owners. So it's really about how do we create experiences that capitalize on this. When we know that consumers are going to be seeing our content while they're watching TV or while they're doing something else, we need to make sure that experience is right for that context. So this is just another example of that same view. So devices are additive to TV. So this is actually Nielsen data. I think I forgot to put a title on here. This is actually the Super Bowl this year. So the purple bars are the commercial breaks, and the white area is the content. So a lot of commercials, but what we really see is that for different types of content, when we look at the World Cup, the Olympics, a lot of these big events, the PC is part of that, and the mobile device is part of that. And we do see some pretty interesting trends that consumers are picking up their devices a little bit more during certain times of the programming. Maybe it's the commercials and so forth. And then when we build on this and we ask consumers or look at what consumers are doing, very often it's consuming content on the mobile device or the PC that's not related to the TV content that they're watching. So when we start to understand this, we start to see this and see what consumers are doing during these different events, it helps us create a better experience and create something that's a little bit different. So some of the other ways that we are looking at multi-screen experiences, I would bucket multi-screen experiences into 3 different lenses. One is about content. I mentioned that a few times. It's what content do we create knowing that consumers are more and more picking up their tablets, their mobile devices, and more multitasking with that. So how do we create content that's right for the tablet? It's about learning through consumer insights. It's about learning what types of content consumers prefer at different times. It's also about ad effectiveness. So this is an area that I work in quite a bit. A lot of our advertisers are more and more starting to ask us, how do these experiences tie together? When I'm advertising on the Yahoo homepage on a PC, when I'm advertising on the Yahoo homepage on a tablet or a mobile device, what does that mean for me? And I think we've made some strides in learning how consumers are responding. This is an example from a case study that we did looking at search as an outcome. So search is a metric for Yahoo as well as a few other publishers, but 3 billion searches occur per month on the Yahoo network. We see that as an outcome metric for many display campaigns. So through these multi-screen experiences, when we tie them together and we understand that you as a consumer saw an ad campaign on 2 different devices, we can see that often additive behavior, that consumers are more likely to search for brands or for keywords related to your ad message. How are we tying that together? Yeah, through Yahoo Mail, you have a persistent ID. So if you are using your Yahoo Mail through a mobile device or through a tablet or PC, we can tie those behaviors to each other. Yep. So the third way we're looking at multi-screen experiences is context. I think a few of our speakers talked about context today. Not just the type of content, not just the ad experience, but where and when are consumers using these devices? Where are they being served ads? Where are they being served different types of content? This is actually from a showrooming study that we did. We heard a little bit about that much earlier. For Yahoo, the interest in something like showrooming is not just helping our marketers understand or our retailers understand how consumers are using these devices in store, but for Yahoo, it's about what types of content are consumers also looking at when they're entering a store, or right before or right after a store. And I think that has a big impact on some of the future and some of the ways that we're serving these experiences. So from this study, I know it's really hard to read, but from this study we saw that many of our showroomers, many of our consumers that are picking up those phones in the store or at the shelf are not just looking at shopping apps or searching for something related to their shelf experience. It's also about content, weather, sports, news, finance, etc. So the other thing I wanted to touch on a little bit, no data here. Perry actually mentioned it, and a few other people mentioned it or asked me about it at lunch, is culture at Yahoo. So we've had tons of change over the last few months at Yahoo. We have a new CEO. We have some new views on our products, our services, pretty much every part of our company. And I think it's been great. But one of the things I was asked about is our work from home. And, and I actually think it's, really it's right for the company. I mean, when you're a company and you're trying to reinvent yourself, reinvent all of your products, I think it's really just about doing what's right. It's about getting people together and so forth. And when you think about your experience, I guess everybody's different. I actually like working from the office. I find myself a lot more productive. I have a child at home and so forth, but I like coming to the office. I like seeing my peers. I find it collaborative and so forth, but a lot of change, I would view it as positive momentum for the company. One of the last things I would mention is a quick promo for our On the Road program. On the Road is a new effort from Yahoo to reintroduce its products, its services, get them out in some local areas. Yahoo is actually coming to St. Louis on May 15th.
You're going to give me tickets, right?
Well, there were some ways to get tickets. We have a concert. It's a performance by Imagine Dragons. You may have heard of them. We are hosting a booth, some different events related to relaunching our products and services. You're welcome to stop by. You're welcome to ask them about tickets to that event, as well as learn about some more specific products that we're changing and we're evolving. That's really it.
So what was the latest acquisition of you guys?
Sumly.
Yeah,
Sumly. So I would tie it back. The message today from the presentation is always look to the consumer. You always look to the consumer to create the right experience, to see what's next. I think that's often associated with a person like myself with the research group, but it's really not. Everybody is a data analyst. Everybody touches data. Everybody here is a strategist about understanding the consumer. And an acquisition like Sumly or Into Now or some of our other partners are really about creating better products and creating a better experience.